Chapter 409. After searching for a long time, his target had finally appeared. Xiaoling Yu could not hide his excitement. However, the environment here was different. He did not let his guard down because of his excitement. Instead, he scanned the area. He did not know if it was because he was too nervous or too excited. Xiaoling Yu felt that when he focused all his attention on the King Bodhi, he was also locked on by a hidden aura. Maybe it's because I'm too nervous. Xiaoling Yu hesitated for a moment. Seeing that there was no danger, he took a deep breath and reached out for the King Bodhi. However, just as his hand was about to touch the almost transparent King Bodhi, a rapid stream of water rolled up from the bottom of the pool and instantly wrapped around his body. At the same time, a huge force surged into Xiaoling Yu's body. He could not move at all. It was as if he was tied up by a very powerful rope. Xiaoling Yu's heart skipped a beat. Then, the purplish-black chaotic primordial flame came out of his body. As soon as the primordial flame appeared, Xiaoling Yu felt much more relaxed. The feeling of being tied down disappeared. However, at this moment, another stream of water rushed towards him. He roared and used one of his arms to form a dragon fist. He smashed it towards the stream of water. Bang! An explosion sounded from the water. The pool water around Xiaoling Yu was immediately shaken away. His body was also pushed out of the water by the stream of water. Splash! The pool water spread out in all directions. A toad-like demonic beast revealed its huge head. Its two demonic eyes glowed with a dark green light. They stared at Xiaoling Yu. The anger in its eyes was obvious. Croak! The demon beast let out a cry, and a dark green water arrow immediately flew out of its mouth, flying towards Xiaoling Yu. Xiaoling Yu felt that he had been locked on. Therefore, he did not dodge. In the next moment, he held the silver moon-broken sword tightly in his hand and slashed out. Although the silver moon-broken sword shattered the water arrow, Xiaoling Yu's body was once again pushed up a few hundred feet. However, before he could stabilize his body had already disappeared under the effect of the invisibility divine robe. Xiaoling Yu's sudden disappearance caused the toad-like demon beast's pair of big eyes to immediately narrow. From its body, there was a very powerful wave of thought, sweeping in all directions. This toad-like demonic beast had the cultivation of the late stage of the martial monarch level. There was no need to doubt its strength. However, it could not compare to the divine sense of a celestial prime. Therefore, it could not find Xiaoling Yu's location. Although Xiaoling Yu was temporarily unharmed, he did not dare to rashly fall into the water again. This was because as long as the invisibility divine robe fell into the water again, his body would be exposed, and then he would receive the fierce attacks of this demonic beast. The demonic beast's attack might not be able to do anything to Xiaoling Yu. However, if it guarded the King Bodhi medallion with all its might, Xiaoling Yu would also have a headache. This stalemate lasted for a few hours. Xiaoling Yu did not act rashly. The demonic beast continued to float on the surface of the water, looking more patient than Xiaoling Yu. However, not long after, waves of croaking sounds came from the direction of the underground river. At the same time, there were waves of bat demons hissing. The few toad-like demonic beasts that had gone out to look for food had returned. After a few moments, they all fell into the pool with a splash. Then, a dense swarm of bat demons rushed over from the direction of the underground river. In the blink of an eye, they filled the mountainside. These bat demons kept hissing at the toad-like demonic beasts in the pool, as if they were angrily protesting. The toad-like demonic beasts, on the other hand, extended their long and wide tongues from time to time, sucking the bat demons into their big mouths. These toad-like demonic beasts were actually feeding on the bat demons. Even though Xiaoling Yu had been carefully and quickly dodging, there were simply too many bat demons here. They were too dense. Before he could hold on for 20 breaths of time, he was exposed because he had bumped into a bat demon. Then, countless bat demons surrounded him and rushed over fearlessly. Unable to hide his body anymore, Xiaoling Yu released the chaotic primordial fire. These bat demons that lived in dark places disliked high-level flames the most. They also feared high-level flames the most. Therefore, when they saw the purplish-black chaotic primordial fire and felt that its power was too strong, they only surrounded it and did not dare to rush over. The bat demons were not very intelligent. Previously, Xiaoling Yu did not harm them, so they did not have much hatred for Xiaoling Yu. Very soon, they turned their attention back to the toad-like demonic beasts on the surface of the pool. Countless bat demons rushed forward one after another like black arrows, continuously attacking the surface of the pool. However, the toad-like demonic beasts had gathered together. Their tongues were like invincible whips that swept in all directions. The bat demons rushing over were just sending themselves to their deaths. At this time, Xiaoling Yu took the opportunity to retract the chaotic primordial fire and hide his body again. He hid in a crack in the stone wall so that he would not be exposed again. However, it did not take long before Emperor-level bat demons rushed over. Moreover, they brought along countless monarch-level bat demons. The bat demons' cultivation was not as high as the toad-like demonic beasts below. Moreover, they were at a natural disadvantage because of the toad-like demonic beasts below. However, they had the advantage in numbers. If they continued to attack crazily, the toad-like demonic beasts below would not have an easy time. Xiaoling Yu watched from the side with fear. If he did not have the invisible divine robe, once he was blocked by the bat demons, even if he was not weak, he would probably be exhausted to death. It was no wonder that Mao Zhen and the experts of the wonderful pill sect did not dare to come over to collect the Bodhi King even though they knew that he was here. The bat demons had counterattacked the toad-like demonic beasts more than once or twice. The reason why the toad-like demonic beasts could still stay here safely was because they had a late Emperor-level bat demon. Although the bat demons were numerous, they did not have a late Emperor-level bat demon. Therefore, every time they attacked, they would return without success. They would still be hunted down by the toad-like demonic beasts. Croak! Seeing that the ordinary late Emperor-level toad-like demonic beasts could not hold on any longer, the late Emperor-level toad-like demonic beasts suddenly let out a loud cry, causing the entire mountainside to tremble. Then, a powerful aura surged up, instantly wiping out more than half of the bat demons that remained in the mountainside. The great Emperor-level bat demon seemed to be very good at judging the situation. He immediately called for his people to retreat. In a few moments, the mountainside was empty. Xiaoling Yu was a little depressed. He had originally thought that he could watch from the sidelines and wait for the bat demons and the toad-like demonic beasts to fight until both sides were injured. Then, he would sit back and reap the benefits. Unfortunately, these bat demons were so cowardly. The moment the late Emperor-level toad-like demonic beasts appeared, they all fled. Xiaoling Yu's plan became a pipe dream. A late Emperor-level toad-like demonic beasts was already a headache for Xiaoling Yu. Now that there were a few more late Emperor-level toad-like demonic beasts, it would be even more difficult for Xiaoling Yu to obtain the Bodhi King. Xiaoling Yu did not dare to act blindly without thinking. He could only continue to wait for an opportunity. He decided that if there was really no better opportunity, he would wait until the late Emperor-level toad-like demonic beasts left to hunt for food again. Then, he would force his way in. A month passed. The Emperor-level toad-like demonic beasts that had already sunk into the water did not emerge. Half a year later, the water surface was still very calm. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye, and they still didn't show any signs of coming out to look for food. As for the late-stage Emperor-level toad, it slowly sank into the water. It was only then that Xiaoling Yu realized that Emperor-level demonic beasts would definitely be able to sustain themselves for a very long time. They definitely wouldn't come out to hunt for food every few days. I don't know how long it will take to refine a divine pill. I can't wait any longer. Xiaoling Yu's patience was worn out. He took a deep breath and slowly sank into the water again. There was a saying in the secular world, if you're willing to be cut to pieces, you'll dare to pull the emperor off his horse. Now that Qing Xian was in a critical situation, Xiaoling Yu couldn't care less. Qing Xian was willing to risk her life for him, so he naturally wasn't a coward. This time, as soon as Xiaoling Yu fell into the water, several water arrows flew towards him, and he was pushed out of the water again. It was obvious that the toad-like demonic beasts were very vigilant, or perhaps the late-stage Emperor-level toad had already informed everyone to be careful. Xiaoling Yu had long expected this situation to happen, so he didn't panic. He hid in his spiritual abode and let it rush down quickly. Unfortunately, when his spiritual abode rushed down, he was depressed to find that all the toad-like demonic beasts, including the late-stage Emperor-level toad, were actually guarding the King Bodhi pill. Xiaoling Yu couldn't appear quickly and quickly take the King Bodhi pill away. They already knew what Xiaoling Yu was going to do, so they were very focused on protecting him. After thinking for a while, Xiaoling Yu steeled his heart and invited out the more than 1,000 armored puppets that he had already refined. Then, he ordered them to attack at the same time. These more than 1,000 armored puppets might not be very strong individually, but at least their skin was rough and their flesh was thick. Their armor's defense was extremely strong. When they charged together, they were like a steel fortress, giving people a heavy sense of oppression. The toad-like monster beasts were also shocked by the appearance of so many iron-armored puppets. But soon after, they shouted at the same time, and a dark green light curtain suddenly appeared, protecting them inside and blocking the iron-armored puppets outside. This isn't enough. Xiaoling Yu smiled disdainfully and slashed at the dark green light curtain with his silver moon-broken blade. However, the light curtain was also incomparably strong, and could actually bounce off the armored puppets' attacks. However, no matter how strong the light curtain was, it gradually showed signs of collapsing under the constant bombardment of more than 1,000 armored puppets. In addition, Xiaoling Yu was constantly burning with the purple-black primal chaos true fire. The dark green light curtain only lasted for less than the time to drink a cup of tea before it exploded with a loud bang. After the light curtain exploded, the toad-like demonic beasts stretched out their tongues at the same time, sweeping the armored puppets around and messing up their formation. Chapter 410. However, even though the tongues could sweep away the armored puppets, they couldn't stop the puppets from rushing over again. The armored puppets would occasionally send out beams of divine light to attack, causing damage to the tongues. If this continued, Xiaoling Yu was certain that the toad-like monsters wouldn't be able to last until the end. Therefore, he wasn't in a hurry to attack. Instead, he focused all his attention on controlling the thousands of armored puppets to attack wildly. The toad-like monsters seemed to know that if this continued, it would be very disadvantageous for them. Therefore, after they persevered for a while, they felt a constant stabbing pain coming from their tongues. Together, they cried out loudly and quickly joined their front claws to form a circle. Then, they began to make the circle spin continuously. The auras of several toads instantly condensed into one, causing the pool water to spin continuously. Hurricanes formed and swept up all the armored puppets, making it difficult for them to stabilize their bodies. Xiaoling Yu was the same. As the pool water spun, he couldn't stabilize his body at all. Therefore, he hid in his divine abode. That toad, a late-stage Emperor-level expert, still stood guard in front of the stone wall, blocking the King Bodhi behind him. "I don't believe that you can keep spinning." Xiaoling Yu was in his divine abode. He wasn't anxious at all. He just stared outside with a solemn expression. The whirlpool outside was too strong. Even the divine abode was being swept up continuously. However, whether it was the divine abode or the armored puppets, they only found it difficult to stabilize. They didn't suffer the slightest damage. These toad-like monsters were able to live in the cave of 1,000 bats and didn't fear the countless bat monsters. They were indeed quite capable. Even Mao Zhen must have been here before. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so sure that the King Bodhi was here. However, he must have fought with these toads before. It was just that he couldn't win. These toads naturally couldn't keep spinning forever. Not long after, they stopped. Then, they all looked panting. The armored puppets swayed for a while before they slowly stabilized. Xiaoling Yu left his divine abode again and used his mind to control the armored puppets to fight. Countless bat monsters once again gathered above the pool, probably sensing the fierce battle here. Among them, the Emperor-level bat monsters observed the situation in the pool. Then, they ordered countless bat monsters below the Emperor level to pounce down again. Kill you while you're down. The bat demons seemed to know this as well. Seeing that the bat demons had arrived, Xiaoling Yu covered her body with the chaotic primordial flame so that the bat demons would not dare to attack her. In the beginning, the bat demons also attacked the armored puppets. However, their sharp fangs and claws could not harm the armored puppets. When they discovered that the armored puppets were attacking the toad-like demon beasts that they hated the most, they gave up on attacking the armored puppets and focused all their attention on the toad-like demon beasts. Even the Emperor-level bat demons that hadn't moved before pounced down and joined the battle. Xiaoling Yu and the thousands of armored puppets had already given the toad-like monsters a headache. Now, with the addition of countless bat monsters, it was even harder for them to hold on. The ordinary Emperor-class toads began to show serious injuries. The late-stage Emperor-class toad knew that the situation was bad. It let out a loud roar and unleashed its aura to wipe out countless bat demons. It also knocked aside the armored golems. Then, it used its tongue to suck King Bodhi into its mouth. Xiaoling Yu was anxious. She controlled the thousands of puppets to surround the late-stage Emperor-class toad. She held the silver moon broken blade and bathed in the purplish-black chaotic primordial flame as she charged over. As for the ordinary Emperor-class toads, they were too tired to resist the bat demon's attacks to help their boss. Croak! The late-stage Emperor-class toad was having a hard time resisting the attacks of the thousands of puppets. After all, these puppets were used by Xiaoling Yu to deal with immortal supremes. How could a late-stage Emperor-class demon beast be able to resist them so easily? It cried out anxiously. Then, the ordinary Emperor-class toads all self-destructed without hesitation. Several Emperor-class existences self-destructed at the same time. The power was naturally incomparably violent. Xiaoling Yu hid in her divine abode without a second thought. The thousand-odd puppets had solid armor for defense. Although they had been blown far away and looked dispirited, the damage wasn't great. The bat demons didn't have it any better. In just an instant, none of the bat demons below the Emperor-class level were left. Even the Emperor-class bat demons were injured by the explosion and were all sent flying out of the mountain. What Xiaoling Yu didn't expect was that after the toad-like demon beasts self-destructed, the energy that gushed out from their bodies was all absorbed by the late-stage Emperor-class toad after creating terrifying shockwaves. Then, the remaining toad-like demon beast's aura soared all the way to the peak of the late-stage Emperor class in the blink of an eye. Moreover, it was only a hair's breadth away from the immortal supreme class. So what if you used such a vicious spell to increase your strength? As long as you're not at the immortal supreme class, I can torture you to death. Xiaoling Yu was still not in a hurry. When the explosion subsided, he once again left the divine abode. Under Xiaoling Yu's thoughts, the armored puppets began to move again. They once again surrounded the toad demon beast and began to attack. After the huge increase in strength, the toad became even more ferocious. However, even a tiger couldn't fight against many wolves. Gradually, it couldn't hold on any longer. The self-destruction of the few Emperor-class toads had already razed the mountain to the ground. Even the cave of 1,000 bats no longer existed. The armored puppets and the late-stage Emperor-class toad were already exposed beside the surging river. Even the cultivators of the Wondrous Pill sect, who were 5 million miles away, looked over in shock. The toad held on for a while longer. Seeing that it couldn't defeat its opponent, it began to flee. The armored puppets could besiege the toad, but they couldn't stop it. Xiaoling Yu put away all the armored puppets and then entered the divine abode to give chase. This toad wasn't known for its speed, and the speed of the divine abode was faster than that of an ordinary immortal supreme class cultivator. It couldn't escape no matter how hard it tried. After the divine abode caught up with the toad, it ruthlessly slammed into it. After being hit, the toad's aura weakened a little. Moreover, its body was injured. After being hit several times, the toad's speed was greatly reduced. Xiaoling Yu released the armored puppets and surrounded it. In the end, the toad despaired. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for it to escape. Therefore, its body began to swell. It seemed that it was going to self-destruct. Xiaoling Yu could have hidden in the divine abode. No matter how the toad self-destructed, it wouldn't hurt him. However, the Bodhi King was still in its stomach. If it self-destructed, the Bodhi King would probably disappear with it. Therefore, he took a huge risk and rushed toward the toad. When the toad saw the enemy rushing toward it, it reflexively stretched out its tongue, wrapped it around the attacker, and swallowed him into its stomach. Once the self-destruction started, it couldn't be stopped unless a supreme-class cultivator came over and suppressed it with a great divine ability. Xiaoling Yu entered the toad's stomach and quickly found the Bodhi King. He put it into a high-grade jade box. Just as King Bodhi was put away by Xiaoling Yu, before he could do anything else, the toad's body exploded with a loud bang. Xiaoling Yu was at the center of the explosion. Naturally, he suffered the greatest impact. This was also the reason why the toad swallowed him into its stomach. Although he couldn't hide in the divine abode in time, the invisibility divine robe on Xiaoling Yu's body was a divine artifact. It also had the defensive power of an ordinary divine artifact. Therefore, the toad's self-destruction couldn't kill Xiaoling Yu. This was also the biggest reason why Xiaoling Yu dared to charge over. It was impossible for him to die. However, after the toad's self-destruction, Xiaoling Yu didn't have it easy either. The invisibility divine robe helped him absorb most of the impact. However, that small amount of impact still broke countless bones in his body. His qi and blood were in turmoil. Even the chaos demon nascent soul spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. The self-destruction of a late-stage emperor-level demon beast was even more powerful. Not only did it create a huge crater with a diameter of no less than 10,000 miles, but it also created a huge black hole in space. However, this black hole closed up in an instant. Xiaoling Yu put away the armored puppets that had been blasted far away. He endured the turmoil in his body and hid in the divine abode. Xiaoling Yu didn't return to the wonderful pill sect directly. First, he let the divine abode fly into space. He found an ordinary-looking planet and sank deep into the ground. Only then did he let the divine abode stop. He took out the jade bathtub from the divine abode. Then, he poured the medicinal soup he had prepared in advance into the bathtub. He began to use the body transformation technique to heal his injuries. Xiaoling Yu's injuries were too severe. This ordinary medicinal soup could only stabilize his injuries. It couldn't completely heal him. A few months later, Xiaoling Yu returned to the wonderful pill sect's encampment. Although his complexion wasn't good, he didn't seem to be in too much trouble. With such a huge commotion in the Myriad Bat Cave, the wonderful pill sect, as the masters of the Piaoxian continent, naturally sent people to investigate. The situation there had already reached Mao Zhen's ears. Although he didn't want to believe it, Mao Zhen knew that it was Xiaoling Yu who had created it. Originally, he thought that Xiaoling Yu hadn't returned for a long time. Most likely, he had fallen. However, Elder Peng said that the soul imprint he had left on Xiaoling Yu hadn't disappeared. Now that Xiaoling Yu was standing in front of Mao Zhen naturally didn't have any doubts. He only asked, "Has the Bodhi King been retrieved?" Xiaoling Yu didn't answer. He just handed the jade box to Mao Zhen. Then, he went to check on Qing Xian, who was lying on a wooden bed. At this time, Qing Xian's body was wrapped in a layer of ice crystals. She was still unconscious. However, Xiaoling Yu didn't feel any life essence flowing out of her body. We have already fused the frost essence into her body. Now, her body is fine. Her life essence is gradually recovering. Moreover, because of the divine grade in her body, it will be easier for her to absorb and refine divine power in the future. It will be easier for her to advance to the immoral venerable realm compared to ordinary late-stage emperors, explained Elder Peng. When can you refine the divine pill? Chapter 411. As long as the materials are ready, I can refine it at any time. Mao Zhen had already put away the King Bodhi and replied straightforwardly. Elder Peng sent a list of materials to Xiaoling Yu and said, "Among these materials, I only have 3. Xiaoling Yu glanced at it and found that she didn't have any, and couldn't help frowning. There was a saying in the secular world, a clever woman can't cook without rice. No matter how powerful Mao Zhen was in alchemy, he couldn't refine anything without materials. In fact, among these materials, except for one, this old man has all the rest. Mao Zhen said. If you have any conditions, just say it. Xiaoling Yu said directly. I have carefully collected these materials for many years. All of them are treasures. Naturally, I can't give them away for nothing. Don't beat around the bush. What conditions do you have? Just say it. Xiaoling Yu impatiently took over Mao Zhen's words. The conditions are not high. 10,000 low-grade divine stones will do. Mao Zhen said with a smile, looking like he was sure to eat Xiaoling Yu. 10,000 divine stones is not high? Elder Peng immediately replied angrily. If you think it's high, you can collect it yourself. I don't have to sell it. Mao Zhen said indifferently. I don't have any divine stones on me. Xiaoling Yu shook her head. Then it's okay to exchange it with a low-grade divine weapon. Mao Zhen said easily. No need, I have 10,000 low-grade divine stones here. Before Xiaoling Yu could speak, Elder Peng had already answered and took out a storage bag. Mao Zhen took the storage bag unceremoniously. After glancing at it with his immortal awareness, he looked satisfied and said, Now I only lack one main material, and this main material can actually be found in the Piaoxiang continent. What main material? Where can I find it? Xiaoling Yu asked. If the spirit congealing pill to be refined is not targeted at her soul characteristics, if anyone can take it, then there is no need for this main material. For her soul condition, this main material can be found at the extreme north of the fragrance continent. It is called the demon head ice soul grass. Mao Zhen first responded and then introduced, the demon head ice soul grass actually grows from the head of a type of snow demon. It's snow white in color and looks exactly the same as the hair of the snow demon. It's very difficult to distinguish. You have to search carefully with your immortal sense to find it. Furthermore, in the extreme northern regions, there are countless snow demons. However, the demon head ice soul grass that grows from the top of their heads is 1 in a billion. Whether or not you can obtain the demon head ice soul grass completely depends on your luck. Luck? It seems that my luck has always been good. Xiaoling Yu said a few more words to Elder Peng, then without a moment's delay, he flew directly to the north. The fragrance continent was vast. It took a long flight from the wondrous Pill Sec station to the extreme north. Xiaoling Yu did not have the patience, so after leaving the wondrous Pill Sec station, he directly entered the divine dwellings. It took him less than a day to reach the extreme north of the fragrance continent. This was a world of ice and snow. Although it was bitterly cold, the environment had no effect on Xiaoling Yu, who had the primal chaos fire. As soon as he arrived at the North Pole, Xiaoling Yu released his immortal sense with all his might and began to search around. In this world of ice and snow, there were indeed countless snow demons. Although these snow demons were of different shapes and species, they all had one common characteristic, which was that they were all snow white. If they quietly crawled in the snow, it was impossible to find them with the naked eye. Under the cover of his immortal sense, Xiaoling Yu could easily find these snow demons. However, after searching for a full month, he still did not find the shadow of the demonic beast ice soul grass. Xiaoling Yu could be said to have been forced to a dead end. Right now, he had to find the demonic head ice soul grass. There was no other way, so even if he was anxious, he could only persevere. Another few months passed. Xiaoling Yu used his immortal sense to search inch by inch. At the same time, he quickly moved his position and carefully investigated the places he passed by. However, he still did not find anything. During this period, he encountered some powerful snow demons. However, these snow demons had a gentle temperament. When they saw Xiaoling Yu retreat, they did not chase after him. A year passed, and he did not find anything. 3 years passed, and he still did not find anything. 10 years passed, and Xiaoling Yu was still frowning as he flew in the snowy sky. 50 years passed, and Xiaoling Yu had already begun to attack those snow demons that howled at him. His patience had been completely worn out. If it was not for the sake of saving Qing Xian, Xiaoling Yu would not have persisted in searching in this monotonous world of ice and snow for 100 years. However, even after searching for 100 years, there was still no trace of the demonic beast ice soul grass. Xiaoling Yu had never heard of grass growing out of a demonic beast's head. However, he knew that there were all sorts of strange things in this world. That Mao Zhen was a great grandmaster. There was no need for him to fool Xiaoling Yu with this. However, the longer he stayed here, the less time Mao Zhen had to refine the elixir. Xiaoling Yu could not remain calm. He felt that those snow demons that howled at him were mocking him, so he attacked and killed them. Those snow demons howled at Xiaoling Yu because Xiaoling Yu had invaded their territory. They were hinting at Xiaoling Yu to quickly leave, not to attack or provoke him. However, those snow demons were unlucky. They did not know what state Xiaoling Yu was in. It was unknown whether it was because he had attacked too many times or because the injured snow demon had called for its friends. In short, just 110 years after Xiaoling Yu came to the bitter cold of the northern part of the Piaoxiang continent, he was surrounded by countless snow demons. Among these snow demons, there was only one early-stage emperor-level powerhouse. Naturally, they could not do anything to Xiaoling Yu. After venting his anger by killing a few dozen snow demons, he calmly retreated. However, Xiaoling Yu had an idea and returned to the place where he had been surrounded. Those countless snow demons had not retreated yet. They rushed towards Xiaoling Yu again. Xiaoling Yu occupied a mountain top and continuously attacked. However, each time, he only injured and forced back the snow demons that rushed towards him. He did not directly kill them. It was not that Xiaoling Yu was soft-hearted. Firstly, there was no need to kill them. Secondly, he deliberately injured these snow demons so that they could continue to call for their friends. It will be a waste of time and energy for me to find them. Why don't I just wait here for them to come find me? That's fine too. I can also find the demon head ice soul grass. That was what Xiaoling Yu thought. Therefore, he only beat the snow demons that rushed towards him until they lost the ability to fight. This way, they would be able to escape but would not be able to charge again. This way, he could ensure that the snow demons that rushed towards him would be different each time. The number of snow demons here was definitely more than the number of bat demons in the 10,000 bat cave. Xiaoling Yu naturally would not persist. If he encountered a very powerful snow demon or if he felt that he was too tired, he would hide in the spiritual abode for a period of time before coming out. Such a miraculous existence like the spiritual abode would naturally attract many snow demons. Xiaoling Yu would also not stay in the same place for too long. Occasionally, he would use the spiritual abode to quickly change his position and continue to create a bigger commotion to attract the snow demons. This was a shortcut to finding the demon head ice soul grass. However, this did not guarantee that he would be able to achieve his goal. Xiaoling Yu was only doing his best. In this way, it took another 200 years for Xiaoling Yu to finally find the demon head ice soul grass. His plan did not go to waste. It was a snow ferret. It looked very cute and was about the size of an ordinary kitten. However, it had a pair of black eyes that made it look very smart. Snow ferrets had hair on their heads, but it was usually very short. However, this snow ferret that Xiaoling Yu had locked onto was different. The hair on its head was about half a foot long. This was also why Xiaoling Yu had discovered it so quickly. Now that his target had appeared, Xiaoling Yu, who could not wait any longer, naturally did not dawdle any longer. He immediately pounced towards the snow ferret. However, the snow ferret was very agile. Its ability to sense danger was very strong. As soon as Xiaoling Yu moved, its body turned into a white light and dodged. Xiaoling Yu actually missed. Xiaoling Yu's explosive speed in short distances was definitely not slower than an ordinary early-stage immortal emperor. However, this snow ferret was actually able to dodge his attack. This made him very surprised. He secretly thought that this snow ferret was indeed not an ordinary creature. Xiaoling Yu immediately continued to give chase. However, the snow ferret was able to dodge every time. Even if Xiaoling Yu moved first, the results would still be the same. After a few flashes, Xiaoling Yu and the snow ferret were far away from the place where countless snow demons were gathered. That snow ferret was very intelligent. Every time it dodged Xiaoling Yu's attack, it would make a very human-like face. This made Xiaoling Yu angry and amused at the same time. However, there was nothing he could do. From the aura that this snow ferret was emitting, one could tell that its cultivation was not weak. However, it was definitely not an immortal emperor. However, its speed was much faster than an ordinary early-stage immortal emperor. Xiaoling Yu found it very difficult to capture it. However, he did not dare to use his ultimate attack for fear of destroying the demon head ice soul grass. However, continuing to chase like this was not a solution. Furthermore, this snow ferret was obviously playing with him. Otherwise, with its speed, it should have been able to easily shake Xiaoling Yu off. After chasing for a while, Xiaoling Yu had a thought and activated the invisibility cloak's invisibility effect. That snow ferret was originally making a face at Xiaoling Yu. However, when Xiaoling Yu suddenly disappeared, it was obviously stunned. Then, in the next moment, it reflexively flashed its body and left the place. After flashing a few times, the snow ferret saw that the human cultivator it had been playing with for a long time still had not appeared. It could not help but stretch out a front paw and scratch its head. It looked very confused. Xiaoling Yu hid in the shadows and slowly approached the snow ferret. After all, that snow ferret did not have the soul of an immortal supremacy. Therefore, it was unable to sense Xiaoling Yu's approach. When Xiaoling Yu suddenly appeared in front of it and attacked, it sensed danger. However, it was already too late to dodge and escape. It was caught by Xiaoling Yu's hand. At this moment, Xiaoling Yu revealed himself and said proudly, "Little fellow, let's see where you can run to now." Chapter 412. Firstly, the little ferret was indeed mysterious and lovable, and secondly, Xiaoling Yu didn't know how to collect the demon head ice soul grass, so after thinking for a moment, he didn't act recklessly and instead brought the little ferret into his divine dwelling before heading towards the wondrous Pill Sect's encampment. The valley where the miraculous Pill Sect was stationed was still as quiet as ever. In a rather spacious pavilion, Qing Xian was lying on a wooden bed with an ice-cold body. Her beautiful face, which was wrapped in ice crystals, had a rosy glow to it. It was obvious that the injuries on her body had recovered very well. "Old Mao, how do we get this demon head ice soul grass?" Xiaoling Yu asked Mao Zhen after imprisoning the little ferret's body. "It's very simple. Just kill this little thing and turn its body into ashes, leaving only the demon head ice soul grass," Mao Zhen replied indifferently. When Xiaoling Yu heard this, he couldn't help but frown, thinking that this old man really wasn't a good person. His heart was actually so vicious, but he still tried his best to ask politely, "Is there a way to take the demon head ice soul grass without killing it?" "There is, but it's very troublesome. There's not much time left, so there's no need to waste time on this," Mao Zhen said indifferently. "Tell me what the method is first," Xiaoling Yu insisted. He felt that this little ferret was not only cute, but also very mysterious. At the very least, it had a strong advantage in sensing danger and speed over short distances. If he could keep it by his side, it would be a great help. "Accelerate the ripening of the demon head ice soul grass and make it leave this little thing's body," Mao Zhen replied. "How do you accelerate its ripening? How long will it take?" Xiaoling Yu asked again. "To accelerate the ripening of such a divine-grade existence, you need a drop of life essence milk, and you'll have to wait for more than 100 years, Mao Zhen replied. When Xiaoling Yu heard this, his frown naturally deepened. "I do have a few drops of life essence milk, but this kind of existence can even accelerate the ripening of a divine-grade existence. For alchemy masters like us who regard high-grade herbs as our lives, it's even more precious than a divine-grade existence. You probably won't be willing to buy a drop. Moreover, can you wait for another 100 years? Mao Zhen added with a smile. How many divine stones does a drop of life essence milk cost? Name a price. Before Xiaoling Yu could answer, Elder Peng had already spoken. Elder Peng spoke up because he saw that Xiaoling Yu liked the little ferret. Secondly, he felt that the little ferret was worth keeping. Thirdly, he felt very uncomfortable when he saw Mao Zhen's posture. Elder Peng, can we wait another 100 years? Xiaoling Yu asked. Why can't we wait? Now, the materials are all ready. However, it will take him many years to process these materials. Moreover, the demon head ice soul grass's medicinal efficacy will definitely be much stronger when it matures. Waiting for 100 years is worth it. Elder Peng nodded and explained. Alchemy Peng, the demon head ice soul grass. Even if there's a delay, there's no delay, to the demon head ice will to refine, and it. And, their SSS, chooses, that has have to wait, and wait, while eyes, use, SSSS. Then we'll have to trouble Elder Peng again, Xiaoling Yu said with a bitter smile. Mao Zhen extorted another 10,000 low-grade divine stones for a drop of life essence milk. Fortunately, Elder Peng was also a great master and had accumulated a lot of wealth. Otherwise, only a few immortal venerables would be able to take out so many divine stones. After receiving Elder Peng's divine stones, Mao Zhen took out a small jade bottle. There were a few drops of milky white liquid floating in the bottle. That liquid was the life essence milk. Mao Zhen opened the jade bottle and took out a drop of life essence milk, dripping it directly on the little ferret's head. Immediately, the little ferret's body shook, and then it was tightly wrapped in a milky white light. It slowly closed its eyes and fell into a deep sleep. You guys wait here. I'll go process the ingredients. After Mao Zhen said this, he left with his disciples. It seemed like he did not want to process the ingredients in front of everyone. When Xiaoling Yu was fighting with the toads, he had suffered heavy injuries. Now that he had nothing to do, and he had to wait for more than 100 years, he could take advantage of this time to recuperate. Before 100 years had passed, Mao Zhen had already processed all the other ingredients. He was only waiting for the demon head ice soul grass to mature. Xiaoling Yu's body also gradually recovered to its peak state. Finally, after waiting for more than 120 years, the milky white light on the little ferret's body gradually disappeared. After waiting for another 10 years, the little ferret slowly opened its hazy eyes. Just as it stretched its waist, the demon head ice soul grass on its head automatically fell off with its roots. After the demon head ice soul grass matured, it naturally left the little ferret's body. It did not have much effect on the little ferret. Moreover, the drop of life essence milk was not completely used on the demon head ice soul grass. It was also very helpful to the little ferret. After waking up from 100 years of slumber, the little ferret, which was originally very close to the immortal emperor stage, directly advanced to the early immortal emperor stage. As soon as the demon head ice soul grass fell off, it was sealed by Mao Zhen and taken away. Xiaoling Yu said to the little ferret, in order to save your life, I've put in a lot of effort. Don't dawdle and quickly recognize me as your master. The little ferret was a very smart demonic beast. Although it really did not want to recognize anyone as its master and be restricted for life, the current situation was very obvious. It knew that it had no choice. If it resisted, it would only die. Therefore, it obediently nodded and allowed Xiaoling Yu to inject a drop of blood soul into its soul. Since the little ferret had already recognized its master, Xiaoling Yu naturally did not need to imprison it anymore. As soon as it regained its freedom, it jumped to Qing Xian's side. Because Qing Xian's side was very cold, and the little ferret liked the cold environment, Xiaoling Yu did not carry it away. He only reminded it not to move around recklessly. After waiting for more than a year, Mao Zhen sent his disciple over to say that he was ready to start refining the divine pill. Brother Xiao, stay here and take care of Qing Xian. I'll go over and watch that old thing refine the pill. After saying this, Elder Peng left with Mao Zhen's disciple. Xiaoling Yu did not understand much about the Tao of alchemy. Even if he went to watch, he would not be able to see anything. Therefore, he stayed by Qing Xian's side with peace of mind. A few days later, Xiaoling Yu suddenly felt a thin and heavy pressure pressing down from the sky. When he went outside to look at the sky, his expression changed drastically. This was because there were dark clouds gathering in the sky above the valley and forming a huge vortex. There was even the sound of thunder rumbling from within. Dark clouds gathering in the sky was not an unusual sight. However, the dark clouds quickly formed a vortex, and a terrifying pressure came from within. This was not an ordinary sight. When he saw that there was a circle of yin and yang fish in the middle of the vortex, he could not help but exclaim, "It's a tribulation cloud." That's right, it's a tribulation cloud. The divine pills or divine tools refined in the immortal world all need to be baptized by the heavenly tribulation. This is the divine pill tribulation. Only after passing the divine pill tribulation will the divine pill be qualified to exist in this world. Elder Peng had returned at some point and was standing beside Xiaoling Yu as he explained. What if it can't pass the tribulation? Wouldn't this divine pill be refined for nothing? Xiaoling Yu asked nervously. Yes. Elder Peng nodded and comforted him. Generally speaking, the divine pills or divine tools refined by the alchemists will be able to pass the heavenly tribulation. After all, this kind of heavenly tribulation is much weaker than the divine tribulation that cultivators have to go through to ascend to the immortal world. At this moment, a fist-sized bead that was shining with a cold white light flew into the air and was under the terrifying heavenly pressure. It was obvious that the white bead was a divine pill that had just been refined. However, it needed to be sucked in by the heavenly tribulation before it could successfully form into a true divine pill. I have refined the divine pill. The rest depends on your luck. At this moment, Maojin also came to the side and said with a pale face. It seemed that refining this divine pill had consumed a lot of Maojin's energy. Brother Xiao, don't worry. More than 80% of the divine pills refined by the alchemists of the wonderful pill sect can pass the divine pill tribulation. Elder Peng was not very nervous. Peng Ba is right. However, if you encounter the 20% failure rate, you can only blame it on your bad luck. It's not that I didn't try my best. When I was refining the divine pill, Peng Ba was watching at the scene, Maojin said with a smile. There was nothing wrong with saying the ugly words in advance. However, before the divine pill tribulation began, Maojin had already begun to shirk his responsibility. This made Xiaoling Yu feel very uneasy. After all, Maojin was forced to come out of seclusion by him and was unwilling to refine this divine pill. It was hard to guarantee that Maojin did not have any ill intentions. Brother Xiao, don't be reckless later. This divine pill tribulation is the same as the tribulation of cultivators. Outsiders cannot help. Otherwise, not only will the power of the heavenly tribulation double, but the person who helps will also be targeted by the heavenly tribulation. Elder Peng seemed to be worried as he transmitted his voice to Xiaoling Yu. This was because he knew that Xiaoling Yu would not allow this divine pill to be destroyed by the heavenly tribulation. Elder Peng, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Although Xiaoling Yu replied in such a way, he had already made up his mind to protect this divine pill no matter what. Boom! After the divine pill tribulation cloud had been brewing for a long time, a silver thunderbolt was sent down. Xiaoling Yu could feel that the power of this silver thunderbolt was comparable to the full-force attack of a supreme celestial artifact. The silver thunderbolt blasted on the divine pill, causing it to be instantly wrapped in silver electric current. Its body trembled violently and shrunk at the same time. The silver electric arc disappeared. The divine pill was not destroyed, but its body had shrunk to the size of an ordinary egg. It looked more solid. Boom! Not long after, another golden thunderbolt struck down from the sky. Its power was a little more powerful than a quasi-divine artifact, but it could not be compared to a real low-grade divine artifact. This strike also landed accurately on the divine pill. Circles of golden electric arc wrapped around the divine pill. Xiaoling Yu was extremely nervous. After the golden electric arc disappeared, the divine pill continued to tremble in midair. This time, it did not immediately shrink again. Instead, it showed signs of expanding. Chapter 413. Xiaoling Yu had a bad premonition when he heard Elder Peng's exclamation. However, the divine pill slowly shrank after expanding for a while. Finally, it was the size of a date and stabilized. It almost couldn't withstand the second tribulation lightning. I'm afraid it won't be able to withstand the third tribulation lightning. Mao Zhan shook his head and sighed, looking very regretful. Elder Peng didn't say anything, but his expression was very gloomy. Like Xiaoling Yu, he hoped that the divine pill could withstand the tribulation lightning. From Elder Peng's expression, it was clear that he also felt that the divine pill couldn't be saved. Xiaoling Yu couldn't help but look coldly at Mao Zhan. More than 80% of the divine pills refined by the Wondrous Pill sect could survive the divine pill tribulation, but this time, it was actually going to fail. Moreover, it was already like this under the second tribulation lightning. Xiaoling Yu had reason to suspect that Mao Zhan was doing this on purpose. Don't look at me like that. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame your bad luck. The probability of failure is less than 20%. Sensing Xiaoling Yu's unfriendly gaze, Mao Zhan shook his head and said. Xiaoling Yu knew that it was useless to argue with Mao Zhan now. The most important thing was to protect the divine pill. Looking at the tribulation clouds in the sky that were still increasing in power, then looking at Qing Xian who was lying on the wooden bed behind him, Xiaoling Yu gritted his teeth, leaped up, and flew to the divine pill. Brother Xiao, you can't. Elder Peng called out. He had placed all his hopes on Xiaoling Yu, so naturally, he didn't want Xiaoling Yu to risk his life. Moreover, he also felt that even if Xiaoling Yu made a move, he might not be able to protect the divine pill. Moreover, it was very likely that he would make a meaningless sacrifice. However, Xiaoling Yu couldn't care less. He had been busy for a long time, expended a lot of energy, and even took a great risk for this divine pill. Even if it wasn't for Qing Xian, he didn't want this divine pill to go up in smoke. This divine pill would definitely not be able to withstand the last bolt of tribulation lightning. If it were to take action when the tribulation lightning struck, it would definitely be too late. Therefore, Xiaoling Yu took the opportunity to fly up before the last bolt of tribulation lightning struck. Xiaoling Yu had just flown into the air when she was locked onto by a powerful aura. The tribulation lightning that was about to descend began to brew again. What a pity! Mao Zhan looked at the sky, shook his head, and sighed. What's a pity? Your divine pill? Elder Peng asked with a gloomy face. What a pity for the divine pill. What a pity for such a talented young man, Mao Zhan replied. Don't pity the divine pill. If you didn't do it on purpose, how could the divine pill be so weak? Elder Peng said coldly. You can't say that. When I was refining the divine pill, you were also present. If I didn't do my best, would you have agreed at that time? Mao Zhan said with a very reasonable expression. Although I have also studied the Tao of alchemy, I am not proficient in it. If you, a dignified alchemy grandmaster, were to play some tricks, how could I see through it? Elder Peng snorted coldly. Don't measure the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain, Mao Zhan replied. If you can be considered a gentleman, then there are no villains in the immortal world. Elder Peng did not hide his sarcasm. I know you are mocking me because you are worried about those divine stones. I won't bicker with you. Mao Zhan looked very magnanimous. Elder Peng was so angry that his body trembled. He did not know what to say to this old scoundrel. After all, there was no evidence to check whether the other party had really done something when refining the divine pill. This tribulation lightning is even more powerful than the divine lightning that ordinary immortal supremes face during their divine tribulation. He most likely won't be able to withstand it. What a pity! Mao Zhan opened his mouth again, as if he wanted to infuriate Elder Peng to death. That may not be the case. Elder Peng was not convinced. Boom! Just as the two martial grandmasters were discussing, a five-colored divine lightning fell from the sky and blasted straight at Xiaoling Yu's head. Before the divine lightning could hit him, Xiaoling Yu had already activated his spiritual abode and used it to shield his head. Then, a purplish-black flame turned into a fire dragon and rushed into the sky. Then, more than 1,000 armored puppets appeared around Xiaoling Yu in an instant and shot a five-colored divine light into the sky at the same time. Boom! 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 The five-colored divine lightning was extremely powerful. First, it blasted the spiritual abode away, then dispersed the purplish-black fire dragon. Finally, it withstood the bombardment of more than 1,000 divine lights and landed on Shaolin Yu's body. Whether it was the spiritual abode, the chaotic primordial flame, or the 1,000 divine lights, they were all extraordinary existences. Although they could not completely block the 5-colored divine lightning, they had reduced more than half of its power. At this moment, Shaolin Yu was wearing the invisible divine robe, which could also weaken the divine lightning's power. Therefore, Shaolin Yu only suffered less than 30% of the 5-colored divine lightning's power. Even so, Shaolin Yu was instantly blasted into the ground. His body and the divine lightning created a bottomless pit in the ground. Shaolin Yu took the bombardment of the 5-colored divine lightning head-on. Naturally, the divine elixir was saved. The tribulation clouds in the sky gradually dispersed, and a ray of light enveloped the divine elixir. This kid has so many powerful techniques. No wonder he dares to be so arrogant in the wonderful pill sect. However, to save the divine elixir, I'm afraid he'll have to leave his life behind. As Mao Zhan thought this, the corner of his mouth revealed an undetectable sinister smile. He thought again, even the celestial sovereign has to be polite when he sees me. Who do you think you are to threaten me? You really don't know the difference between life and death. Elder Peng did not look at the divine elixir in the sky, nor did he think much of it. Instead, he looked directly at the wooden bed behind him. When he saw that the little ferret lying next to the Qing Xian on the wooden bed was still alive and well, Elder Peng let out a long sigh and said, "I told you, that might not be the case." If Shaolin Yu had been killed by the 5-colored divine lightning, then the little ferret, who had recognized Shaolin Yu as its master, would have been destroyed as well. Since the little ferret was fine, it proved that Shaolin Yu was at least still alive. When Mao Zhan heard Elder Peng's words, he also looked behind him. When he saw that the little ferret was safe and sound, he immediately frowned. "Your expression betrayed you," Elder Peng said with a cold smile. Mao Zhan did not respond. Instead, he flew directly toward the big pit that Shaolin Yu had created. Elder Peng immediately followed him, only to see Mao Zhan throw a golden ball into the big pit. Boom! Elder Peng had just caught up when a golden light flashed in front of his eyes. Then, an earth-shattering explosion sounded. He was caught off guard and was directly blown far away. As for the little ferret in the pavilion, it was the first to sense the danger. Before the explosion occurred, it hugged Qing Xian's ice-cold body and ran far away. After throwing the golden ball, Mao Zhan jumped up and put the divine elixir into a jade box. The other cultivators of the wonderful pill sect surrounded him and stared coldly at Elder Peng. Elder Peng spat out a few mouthfuls of blood from the explosion. After he steadied himself, he pointed at Mao Zhan and said, "How dare you do this? Humph! You dare to attack the wonderful pill sect and capture my disciple to threaten me. Why wouldn't I dare to do the same? Do you think that the wonderful pill sect can be bullied so easily?" Mao Zhan said with a righteous tone. Elder Peng's face was full of resentment, but he was already injured. Moreover, the other party had the advantage in numbers. What could he do? However, in the next moment, Elder Peng seemed to have thought of something. He looked behind him, but he did not see Qing Xian and the ferret. After looking around again, Elder Peng finally saw the little ferret. He could not help but laugh loudly. "Ha ha! Old bastard, you'll regret your foolish actions," Elder Peng said with a smile. Mao Zhan also saw that the little ferret was still unharmed. He frowned again and cursed, "This kid is really tough. He's still alive." As he spoke, another golden ball appeared in Mao Zhan's hand. He threw it at the big pit. "I'm really tough." Before the golden ball exploded, a voice full of hatred suddenly sounded in Mao Zhan's ears. Mao Zhan was shocked. A ball of purple-black flames had already wrapped around his body. "Stop, you brat!" Boom! Mao Zhan's white-haired junior brother had just shouted when another explosion came from the big pit below. Mao Zhan's junior brother struck out with his palm. Shaolin Yu transformed one of his arms into a dragon claw and met the attack head-on. When the two palms collided, Mao Jin's junior brother was sent flying. Xiaoling Yu only took a few steps back, but he coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood. Then, under the control of Xiaoling Yu's will, more than 1,000 puppets quickly reacted and surrounded the area. Elder Peng also flew over at this time, his face full of surprise and joy. As an alchemy grandmaster, Mao Jin also possessed a divine fire. At this time, a ring of green divine fire flickered around his body, resisting the purple-black chaos true fire's burning. For a moment, he did not look worried. "I've fulfilled all your conditions," Xiaoling Yu said angrily. "Even if I forced my way into the Wondrous Pill sect, and even if I did kidnap your disciple to threaten you, you're still a grandmaster respected by millions of cultivators in the immoral world. How could you be so vicious?" Surrounded by countless armored cultivators, Xiaoling Yu looked completely unaffected. Add to that the fact that Elder Peng was present, the other cultivators of the Wondrous Pill sect didn't dare to make a move. "I don't think you'll be grateful to me after I helped you refine a divine pill. When you gave me those things, you probably wanted me to pay you back double in the future, right?" Mao Jin said as he resisted with all his might. "To tell you the truth, your guess is correct. I did have such thoughts. Unfortunately, if you hadn't been so vicious, I might have let you go," Xiaoling Yu said. "There's a saying in the moral world, the one who strikes first gains the upper hand, the one who strikes later loses. Just now was the best time for me to kill you. I won't give up so easily. If I had to choose again, I would still do the same," Mao Jin said shamelessly. "Unfortunately, you underestimate me too much. When I was struck down by the divine lightning just now, my body didn't actually suffer that much damage," Xiaoling Yu said with a smile. "It's not that I underestimated you, but that I thought highly of you. However, your strength still exceeded my expectations. I also didn't expect your divine clothes to be invisible." Mao Jin replied with a wry smile, then said, "Can you leave behind a legacy for our Wondrous Pill sect?" Chapter 414. "You're asking me to leave trouble for myself in the future," Xiaoling Yu said nonchalantly. If Xiaoling Yu hadn't used the invisibility divine robe to conceal himself, launched a sneak attack, and enveloped Mao Jin with the primal chaos primordial fire, Xiaoling Yu wouldn't have been able to subdue Mao Jin so easily even with Elder Peng's help. However, Mao Jin was currently enveloped by the primal chaos primordial fire and couldn't escape at all. He could only use his own green divine fire to defend himself. However, the green divine fire was slightly weaker than Elder Peng's blue divine fire. How could it resist the purplish-black primal chaos primordial fire for long? In less than 100 breaths, the defensive barrier formed by Mao Jin's green divine fire had weakened slightly before gradually shrinking. The purplish-black primal chaos primordial fire gradually approached Mao Jin's body. The knell of death had already rung in Mao Jin's ears. "Why don't we make him swear an oath that he'll never be our enemy again and let him go this time?" Elder Peng suggested. "Is that necessary?" Xiaoling Yu asked indifferently. "He's an alchemy grandmaster after all. If Brother Xiao kills him, I'm afraid you'll incur the wrath of those venerables," Elder Peng said calmly. "I don't care about the wrath of those venerables. I only know that he tried to kill me just now. I'll never let such a person go," Xiaoling Yu said firmly and confidently as he shook his head. Elder Peng was about to persuade him again when the purplish-black primal chaos primordial fire burned Mao Jin's body. At that moment, Xiaoling Yu reached into the primal chaos primordial fire and removed Mao Jin's storage ring as his body slowly melted. In just a few breaths, Mao Jin's body turned into ashes, leaving only a ball of green divine fire. "Elder Peng, you can deal with this ball of divine fire." After retrieving his primal chaos primordial fire, Xiaoling Yu flew to Qing Xian's side. At the same time, he commanded the thousands of armored puppets to surround and kill the cultivators of the Wondrous Pill sect. However, as soon as the puppets shone with divine light, Xiaoling Yu stopped them and said, "Every injustice has its perpetrator and every debt has its debtor. Now that Mao Jin, who tried to kill me, is dead, if you can swear an oath with your souls that you won't avenge him or become my enemy in the future, I'll spare your lives." "I'm willing to swear." Mao Zhen's disciple, who was an early-stage divine immortal, of course, of heaven. He. Xiao Lingyu smiled at Mao Zhen's disciple. He didn't need to worry about such a cowardly person. Then, he said, hand over my scimitar. Mao Zhen's disciple didn't hesitate and obediently handed over the scimitar that was as thin as a cicada's wing to Xiao Lingyu. It wasn't easy to cultivate to the early-stage divine immortal realm. Moreover, he had received the true teachings of an alchemy grandmaster. A bright future awaited him. He didn't want to lose his life because of a moment of loyalty. What about the rest of you? Xiao Lingyu looked at the other disciples of the Wondrous Pill sect. Compared to the cultivators of the devil world, immortals were more content with life and didn't like fighting. They treasured their lives even more. After some thought, the other disciples of the Wondrous Pill sect looked at Mao Zhen's white-haired junior brother. After he sighed and took the lead in swearing an oath, the other disciples of the Wondrous Pill sect followed suit. Xiao Lingyu waved his hand and said, "You're all free now. In the future, don't let me see any of you in the immortal world." Without an alchemy grandmaster, the Wondrous Pill sect naturally couldn't continue to control the Piaoxiang continent. Although the disciples of the Wondrous Pill sect had deep feelings for the Piaoxiang continent, they had no choice but to leave. Even if Xiao Lingyu didn't chase them away now, other experts from the immortal world would come in the future. After all the disciples of the Wondrous Pill sect left, Xiao Lingyu put away the puppets, divine palaces, and scimitar. Then, he took out a jade box from Mao Zhen's storage ring. Xiao Lingyu opened the jade box, revealing a white divine pill that was suffused with a cold mist. A knowing smile appeared on his face. He used the primal chaos true fire to melt the ice crystals on Qing Xian's body and helped her sit up straight. Then, he fed the divine pill into her mouth. When the divine pill was first refined, its quality was extremely high. It could even withstand the bombardment of divine lightning. However, after transcending the tribulation and being enveloped by the light of the heavenly tribulation for a period of time, it would melt in her mouth and its medicinal efficacy would automatically spread. This divine pill's main effect was on the soul, so its medicinal efficacy directly invaded Qing Xian's knowledge sea. Qing Xian's soul was nourished and she quickly woke up. Then, she heard Xiao Lingyu's reminder, quickly circulate your cultivation and absorb the divine pill's medicinal efficacy. Although Qing Xian didn't understand what was going on, she still acted rationally and gradually entered a state of cultivation. Puff! Puff! After Qing Xian's condition stabilized and improved, Xiao Lingyu finally relaxed. However, he coughed up several mouthfuls of foul blood again. When he was talking to Mao Zhen just now, Xiao Lingyu appeared very relaxed. In fact, his body that had just recovered suffered heavy injuries under the bombardment of the five-colored divine lightning. Fortunately, his body and bloodline were very strong, so he was able to persevere. When he was just blasted into the ground, he activated the invisibility divine robe's invisibility function and left the huge pit without stopping for a moment. When Mao Zhen saw that the little ferret was safe and sound, he threw a golden pearl into the huge pit. However, Xiao Lingyu had already left the pit and was hiding nearby to see if Mao Zhen would take advantage of the situation. Xiao Lingyu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper. When he saw that Elder Peng was concentrating on refining the green divine fire, Xiao Lingyu felt at ease and took out the jade bathtub. Elder Peng had also contributed a lot this time. At the very least, he had taken out many divine stones to help. Moreover, Elder Peng had previously given up his blue divine fire. It was only natural that Xiao Lingyu handed Elder Peng the green divine fire. Moreover, the green divine fire wasn't very useful to Xiao Lingyu. After all, he already had the purplish-black primordial flame of chaos. Moreover, he didn't want to go to the fire source continent to borrow the sacrificial flame altar to merge the green divine fire with the primordial flame of chaos. Qing Xian's experience had made him very wary of the sacrificial flame altar. Even if he borrowed the sacrificial flame altar and successfully merged the primordial flame of chaos with the green divine fire, Xiao Lingyu wouldn't be able to use his bloodline to suppress the power of the primordial flame of chaos. he also wouldn't be able to control the new primordial flame of chaos. With the help of the powerful medicinal effects of the divine pill, Qin Xian only used a dozen or so days to completely recover. When she stopped cultivating, Xiaoling Yu was still in the bathtub. Whoosh! Qin Xian had just stood up when a beam of white light shot towards her from nearby. She didn't know if it was because she had just recovered and wasn't used to it, or because the white light was too fast, but she actually wasn't able to dodge it. Fortunately, the white light was not an attack. It was a cute and clever little ferret that had transformed into it. The little ferret was very fond of the icy aura on Qin Xian's body. After it pounced into Qin Xian's arms, it even intimately rubbed against her. After a moment of surprise, Qin Xian's beautiful face immediately bloomed with a smile. She said gently, "What a miraculous little thing." After that, Qin Xian hugged the little ferret. She first glanced at the bathtub, then flew to Elder Peng's side. She said, "He seems to be heavily injured." Elder Peng continued to refine the green divine fire as he recounted what happened after Qin Xian had fainted on the sacrificial flame altar. Naturally, he deliberately exaggerated how worried Xiaoling Yu was about Qin Xian's safety. He also exaggerated the risk Xiaoling Yu had taken to save Qin Xian. Elder Peng had cultivated for countless years and experienced many things. Naturally, he could see Qin Xian's feelings. He also felt that Qin Xian and Xiaoling Yu were indeed very compatible. Therefore, he wanted to play matchmaker. As Elder Peng narrated, the happiness on Qin Xian's face grew even stronger. She asked like a little girl, "Really?" Elder Peng naturally answered with certainty. Everything he said was true, although he didn't know Xiaoling Yu's feelings and didn't know how much danger Xiaoling Yu had taken. He's just too reckless. He actually killed Great-Grandmaster Mao. Although Qin Xian's words were reproachful, there was a hint of pride in her reproach. "Sister Qin Xian, such a good son-in-law. You have to hurry up. Don't let other girls beat you to it." Elder Peng reminded her with a smile. When Qin Xian heard this, her face, which was originally filled with happiness, immediately changed color. She sighed and said, "Someone has already beaten me to it." The smile on Elder Peng's old face immediately froze. He said in astonishment, "It can't be." Qin Xian was speechless. The sadness on her face was obvious. Elder Peng thought for a moment and said, "Actually, Brother Xiao is a demonic cultivator. He cultivates demonic techniques. Sister Qin Xian, on the other hand, is an immortal cultivator. You cultivate immortal energy. Two completely different cultivation systems can't be combined." Qin Xian's expression became even more conflicted. She didn't know what to say at that moment. She quietly descended and turned her back to Xiaoling Yu's bathtub. She gazed into the distance and gently stroked the little ferret's soft fur. After all, Elder Peng possessed the divine fire in the past, so he had ample experience in refining the divine fire. Therefore, it took him less than 2 years to refine a portion of the divine fire. He was already able to control the green divine fire at will. Xiaoling Yu, on the other hand, only stood up from the bathtub a few years later. In fact, the medicinal soup in the bathtub was already clear, but it was rare for him to relax, so he slept in the bathtub for a while. The sound of splashing water pulled Qin Xian out of her thoughts. She immediately turned around and saw Xiaoling Yu's naked body. She immediately spat and her face flushed red. Elder Peng flew to Xiaoling Yu's side and reminded him, "It won't be long before the news of the miraculous pill school's destruction spreads in the immoral world. This place will soon become a place of trouble. It's better for us to leave quickly." Xiaoling Yu nodded and then looked at the little ferret. However, the little ferret ignored him. Xiaoling Yu laughed bitterly and said, "Since you don't like me, I won't force you. I'll remove you as my master now." He waved his arm at the little ferret. The blood soul that Xiaoling Yu injected into the little ferret's soul automatically flew out and dispersed. Chapter 4:15. After regaining its freedom, the little ferret was naturally very happy. After all, no one wanted to be controlled by others, and no one wanted to die because of their master's death. However, the little ferret did not leave according to Xiaoling Yu's words. Instead, it was still lazily lying in Qing Xian's arms, looking very sentimental. "Little fellow, you will follow big sister from now on. I will definitely not bully you, and I will not allow anyone to bully you," Qing Xian said dotingly. When the little ferret heard this, it seemed to understand Qing Xian's meaning. It actually waved its little fist at Xiaoling Yu with a fierce look, as if to say, "You dare to bully me in the future." Xiaoling Yu, Elder Peng, and Qing Xian were all amused by the little ferret's mischievous look. Then, the three of them packed up everything and flew towards the teleportation array of the Piaoxiang continent. While continuously teleporting to the East Imperial continent, Xiaoling Yu continued to blood bond with the armored puppet and his divine artifact. Although this trip to the Piaoxiang continent was a long one, and he had suffered a lot, the rewards were still quite good. Not to mention Qing Xian's divine elixir, just the treasures in Mao Zhen's storage ring were enough to make even an immortal supremacy jealous. As an alchemy grandmaster, Mao Zhen's storage ring contained close to 100,000 low-grade divine stones, dozens of divine elixirs with different effects, 2 divine artifacts of decent quality, and thousands of high-grade herbs. Even the Bodhi King that Xiaoling Yu took a risk to obtain from the 10,000 Bat Cave was in the ring. Even though they did not have to wait in line to teleport from the Piaoxiang continent to the East Imperial continent, it still took a full 800 years to complete the journey. Elder Peng did not follow them all the way to the East Imperial continent. Instead, he parted ways with Xiaoling Yu and Qing Xian halfway, saying that he was going back to take a look. After Xiaoling Yu returned to the Nanhua Mortal School, they had a period of peaceful days. However, not long after, Xiaoling Yu, who was meditating on the second floor of his pavilion, suddenly sensed a strange movement in his storage ring. He sank his consciousness into it and was overjoyed. The soul jade pendant that Zhongzhi had given to Xiaoling Yu had shattered in Xiaoling Yu's storage ring. This was the signal that the Bao Inquire organization had completed their mission. In other words, the detective organization had found Anya. Xiaoling Yu could not suppress the excitement in her heart. She immediately got up and left the loft. He rushed to the East Imperial City as fast as he could, and then went straight to that unremarkable shop. "Ah, Brother Zhao's speed is really fast." Zhongzhi was still sitting on a chair on the second floor. When he saw Xiaoling Yu, he stood up and smiled. "You're more efficient when you're around," Xiaoling Yu praised with a smile. "The key is that we value this mission. Naturally, we completed it quickly. If it was someone else who issued the same mission, it would probably take at least tens of thousands of years to find her," Zhongzhi said meaningfully. "Thank you, Brother Zhong." Xiaoling Yu thanked him sincerely. "Brother Xiao, you're too polite. We're family, after all. Your matter is the matter of the Bao Inquire organization and all the descendants of Earth." Zhongzhi shook his head and said, "Where's the person I'm looking for?" Xiaoling Yu did not continue with the pleasantries and asked directly. "Brother Xiao, don't worry. She's doing very well now. Furthermore, we have experts protecting her in the dark." Zhongzhi first comforted her and then said, "The immortal world continent she's in now is a little far from the East Imperial continent. Even if she doesn't have to line up and teleport all the way there, it will take at least 2,000 years to arrive. Thank you for your concern, Brother Zhong." Xiaoling Yu still had a grateful expression. "If Brother Xiao has something to do and has no time to go over, we can send someone to escort her all the way here," Zhongzhi continued. "I'll go over myself. I don't dare to trouble Brother Zhong." Xiaoling Yu shook his head and said. Zhongzhi nodded. After pondering for a moment, he said, "Brother Xiao, you should consider Elder Qi's suggestion last time. Although we descendants of Earth don't dare to openly announce our identity in the immortal world, it doesn't mean that we're weak. The strength we have is definitely enough to destroy any top aristocratic family in the immortal world." Xiaoling Yu responded, "I'm not a qualified leader, but I'll say it again. If there's anything you need me for, I won't refuse." Anya was so far away from the East Imperial continent, but the Bao Inquire organization could find her so quickly. From this, it could be seen how powerful the descendants of Earth were. Zhongzhi didn't try to persuade him anymore. He immediately told Xiaolingyu Anya's current location. Xiaolingyu also thought that the Baolinquire organization would use Anya to threaten him. But now, it seemed that they didn't have such plans. He was relieved. After obtaining Anya's exact location, Xiaolingyu didn't dawdle anymore. First, he returned to the Nanhua Immortal sect, asked Qing Pingzi for a token, and said that he would be leaving for a period of time. Then, he left the East Imperial Continent. 2 years after Xiaolingyu left, Qing Xian only found out that Xiaolingyu had left. There was a lot of resentment in his heart. Just like before, he kept teleporting while refining all his divine artifacts with the primal chaos true fire. Not only was the journey peaceful, but his overall strength was also increasing as the refinement of each divine artifact deepened. Just as Zhongji said, Xiaolingyu used a total of 2,200 years to teleport to the Immortal Realm continent where Anya was located. 2,000 years of teleportation without waiting in line. It was hard for Xiaolingyu to calculate how far he could cross. He also couldn't count the number of Immortal Realm continents he had passed through. The entire space of the Immortal Realm could only be described as boundless. This continent was called the 10,000 Flower Continent. It was one of the most famous continents in the Immortal Realm. The reason why the 10,000 Flower Continent was famous was because of the colorful flowers and plants that could be seen everywhere. The scenery was extremely beautiful. For the more leisurely immortals who had always lived a comfortable life, this was undoubtedly one of the best places to live for a long time. It was said that in ancient times, the flower people lived on the 10,000 Flower Continent. However, after the realms were separated, the flower people's experts went to the Immortal Realm. The flower people's cultivators weren't very strong either in terms of overall strength or individual strength. As a result, the flower people gradually disappeared in the long river of history. The 10,000 Flower Continent was now a prosperous continent in the Immortal Realm. It wasn't just because of the beautiful scenery, but also because there was a very powerful sect there, the Heaven's Incense School. The Heaven's Incense School's disciples were all female cultivators. The reason why they were said to be very strong was because there was an immortal sovereign in the Heaven's Incense School. That immortal sovereign was the famous immortal blue jade in the Immortal Realm. The Heaven's Incense School was different from the other top sects in the Immortal Realm. They didn't control a large portion of the continents in the Immortal Realm, nor did they set up their own businesses on the continents to plunder immortal stones. Their cultivators all cultivated peacefully on the 10,000 Flower Continent and didn't usually go to other continents. Only they knew where the large amount of immortal stones they needed for cultivation came from. In the hearts of all the female cultivators in the Immortal Realm, the Heaven's Incense School was the sect they wanted to join the most. However, it was a top sect with an immortal sovereign, so it wasn't easy for just anyone to join. The more it was like this, the more female cultivators who thought they had extraordinary talent would come every year to be tested by the Heaven's Incense School's experts to see if they had the qualifications to join. There were also many male cultivators who came, wanting to find one or more female cultivators with decent talent to become their dual cultivation partner. None of this had anything to do with Xiaolingyu. However, when Xiaolingyu arrived on the 10,000 Flower Continent, she followed Zhongji's instructions and found the secret branch of the intelligence agency in the 10,000 Flower City. However, she heard some bad news. A few hundred years ago, Anya had also participated in the Heaven's Incense School's test. However, not only had Anya failed the test, she had also been forcefully detained by the Heaven's Incense School for cheating and contradicting their examiners. She hadn't been released to this day. The head of the intelligence agency on the 10,000 Flower Continent knew that Anya was an important person, so he sent people to negotiate with the Heaven's Incense School. However, the Heaven's Incense School claimed that they had already released Anya. However, the intelligence agency was unable to find Anya's whereabouts. Originally, we had people protecting her in secret, but when she entered the Heaven's Incense School's encampment for the test, our people couldn't follow her in. Otherwise, such an accident wouldn't have happened, the head of the investigation department helplessly explained to Xiaolingyu. Continue searching for her. I'll go ask the Heaven's Incense School. Xiaolingyu first left a soul imprint with the head so that they could communicate more easily. Afterwards, she left the 10,000-flower city with a gloomy expression and headed for the Heaven's Incense School station. Everywhere she passed, flowers bloomed and plants tasted delicious. However, Xiaoling Yu wasn't in the mood to appreciate the scenery at all. Her face remained ashen the entire time. After 2 whole days, Xiaoling Yu finally arrived at the entrance of the Heaven's Incense School station. The Heaven's Incense School station was built in the mountains. It covered a large area and was filled with flowers and plants. The scenery was pleasant. The entrance to the station was very grand as well. It actually used 2 large mountains as the pillars on either side, and a huge and very long piece of white jade was placed between the 2 mountains as the door beam. The words Heaven's Incense School were written on the huge piece of white jade. It was said that the cultivators of the Heaven's Incense School had not placed the huge piece of white jade between the 2 mountains. Instead, it had been like this since ancient times. The Heaven's Incense School was named after the words on the huge piece of white jade. 2 female cultivators in bright red soft armor stood guard at the entrance of the Heaven's Incense School station. They were as beautiful as flowers. As soon as Xiaoling Yu arrived at the entrance, she was stopped by the 2 female cultivators. According to the rules of the Heaven's Incense School, we do not accept male cultivators. No male cultivators are allowed to enter the Heaven's Incense School station. May I ask why you have come? One of the female cultivators in red armor asked with a hint of arrogance. I've come to look for someone. She came to the Heaven's Incense School to participate in the test before, but she never came out, Xiaoling Yu said as politely as she could. Chapter 4:16. She didn't pass the test. Xiaoling Yu shook his head. That's impossible. If she didn't pass the test, there's no way our Heaven's Incense School would keep her. You should look elsewhere, the female guard said with certainty. Can you find a steward to talk to? Xiaoling Yu wasn't very satisfied with the female guard's attitude. Stewards are all busy. They won't come out for such a small matter, the female guard said indifferently. The Heaven's Incense School had a celestial sovereign, so they had the capital and confidence to not fear any major powers in the celestial realm. Their disciples were naturally full of energy, especially when they were in front of their own school. Then how can the 2 of you be so sure that the person I'm looking for has left the Heaven's Incense School? No matter what, she went missing after entering your Heaven's Incense School. Furthermore, you've detained her. Shouldn't you send a steward to explain the situation? Xiaoling Yu asked with narrowed eyes. Detained? What a joke. Why would our Heaven's Incense School detain her? When you speak, you should consider it carefully. Don't make wild guesses. If you damage our Heaven's Incense School's reputation, we'll definitely hold you responsible for spreading rumors, the female guard said firmly. She was detained. It was the person who came with her who said it himself. Do you still want to deny it? Xiaoling Yu said with a cold smile. How can you be so sure that the person who came with her wasn't lying? The female guard asked in return. Xiaoling Yu knew that the King of Hell was easy to deal with. It was pointless to say anything to these ordinary disciples who didn't know much. His patience had been completely worn away. He was also very worried about Anya's situation. He said coldly, "Are you going to report this? Please return." The truth is definitely not what you think it is, the female guard said indifferently. She appeared cold. Humph. Then I can only go in and ask for the truth myself. Xiaoling Yu was furious. He directly passed between the 2 guards and entered the Heaven's Incense School. You really don't know the meaning of death. The 2 guards didn't stop him, nor did they chase after him. One of them crushed a jade slip. The Heaven's Incense School reacted very quickly. As soon as Xiaoling Yu entered the encampment, she was surrounded by a group of female cultivators in bright red armor. Audacious thief! How dare you trespass into the Heaven's Incense School's territory? Are you seeking death? A female disciple from the Heaven's Incense School had just finished speaking when she was shocked to discover that the man they had surrounded had already charged out of their encirclement. Xiaoling Yu was extremely fast. Wherever she passed, she destroyed the buildings of the Heaven's Incense School. However, she did not harm any of the Heaven's Incense School disciples. He was here to ask for someone, not to kill. Moreover, he and the person in charge of the Baoqi branch were not sure if Anya was still being held captive by the Heaven's Incense School. Now, he was deliberately making a big commotion to force the person in charge of the Heaven's Incense School to come out and see him. In fact, Shaolin Yu could also use his identity as a member of the Nanhua Immortal Sect to ask the person in charge of the Heaven's Incense School to come out and see him. However, if Anya was really being held captive by the Heaven's Incense School, he would most likely be unfavorable to the Heaven's Incense School. He was afraid that he would bring unnecessary trouble to the Nanhua Immortal Sect. Therefore, he had to force his way in. He was causing trouble in the Heaven's Incense School's encampment. Naturally, the experts of the Heaven's Incense School would not sit idly by. Less than 100 breaths after he rushed in, more than 10 startled Emperor-level experts came and surrounded him again. Since the Emperor-level experts had already come out, there was no need for Shaolin Yu to cause any more trouble. He immediately explained his purpose for coming. Junior Sister Mei Ling, you are in charge of selecting disciples for the sect. Do you know about this? A seemingly middle-aged female Emperor-level expert asked the person beside her. Senior Sister, there is no such thing. This person must be deliberately causing trouble, the female Immortal Emperor called Mei Ling replied. Humph. Your Excellency is really audacious. You will pay the price for your foolish actions today with blood. The seemingly middle-aged female Emperor-level expert said coldly. Being surrounded by so many Emperor-level experts, even though Shaolin Yu's abilities were not weak, it was still very troublesome. When the group of female Emperor-level experts prepared to attack together, Shaolin Yu hid himself. The target suddenly disappeared into thin air, and everyone's immortal senses also lost their target. Naturally, they were all shocked. When they began to continuously vibrate the space in an attempt to force the target out, Shaolin Yu had already escaped the encirclement and fled far away. There were some things that he could not be completely sure of. After all, the information that the person in charge of the spying school branch knew was from other people's mouths. Whether it was the truth or not was still uncertain. Shaolin Yu did not want to anger a celestial supremacy, so he did not make too much of a fuss. He only wanted to see if Anya was still in the Heaven's Incense School. The person in charge of the Heaven's Incense School did not admit to it, so he could only carefully search for her himself. However, although the Heaven's Incense School encampment looked beautiful, there were hidden protective and alert restrictions everywhere. In his anxiety, Shaolin Yu would naturally touch them. Occasionally, he would expose himself or be attacked. Fortunately, the invisibility divine robe's defense was quite strong. Shaolin Yu did not suffer any injuries. Furthermore, he could immediately turn invisible again after being discovered. At this moment, the Heaven's Incense School encampment was even more lively than when Shaolin Yu was wreaking havoc everywhere. The experts of the Heaven's Incense School all knew that an expert had snuck in, but they did not know where the intruder was. They could only search everywhere like headless flies. They mobilized all the disciples that could be mobilized to search carefully and increase their vigilance. Just as Shaolin Yu was bitterly searching everywhere, the female Immortal Emperor called Mei Ling quietly came to a garden in the depths of the Heaven's Incense School encampment. Seeing that there was no one around, she walked in front of a rockery and chanted a few incantations. The rockery suddenly disappeared, and a cave entrance appeared. Mei Ling entered the cave and chanted a few more incantations. The rockery that had disappeared earlier reappeared and completely covered the cave entrance. What Mei Ling did not know was that when the cave entrance appeared, Shaolin Yu, who was still moving around secretly in the Heaven's Incense School encampment, suddenly stopped in his tracks. Then, he frowned and rushed toward the garden. After all, Shaolin Yu and Anya had dual cultivated for many years. Not only were they very familiar and sensitive to each other's auras, but they could also sense each other's presence as long as they were not too far away. They could also roughly determine each other's location. Just a moment ago, Shaolin Yu suddenly sensed Anya's presence in approximate location. However, this feeling disappeared after just 2 breaths. As he rushed toward the garden, Xiaoling Yu thought angrily, she really is still imprisoned here. However, the feeling just now was too short, and the feeling was rather vague. After Xiaoling Yu arrived at the garden, he could only be sure that Anya was nearby. However, he did not know where Anya was imprisoned. Even though Xiaoling Yu used his consciousness to observe every corner of the scene, his soul realm was not high enough. He could not find any clues. They already know that I'm here. They will definitely move Anya away or bring harm to Anya. In his anxiety, Xiaoling Yu did not care so much anymore. He immediately attacked repeatedly, randomly bombarding everything in the garden. The experts of the Heaven's Incense School naturally quickly surrounded him. However, they were blocked outside by nearly 2,000 armored puppets. These armored puppets were expressionless. As long as they saw someone approaching, they would immediately shoot out divine light to attack. Those with cultivation below the Emperor realm could not get close at all. Even if an Emperor realm expert wanted to force their way into the garden, they would have to pay a heavy price. The entire garden was in ruins, but Xiaoling Yu still hadn't discovered anything. At that moment, the middle-aged female cultivator, who was a late-stage Emperor-level cultivator, charged in. She asked coldly, "Sir, for you to possess such skills, you must be quite a figure in the immortal realm. Why did you barge into my Heaven's Incense School and wreak havoc? Without distinguishing between right and wrong?" Xiaoling Yu's face was ashen. He flew in front of the other party without fear and said, "Just now, I clearly sensed the existence of the person I'm looking for. She was detained nearby by you. You still have the face to say that I didn't distinguish between right and wrong?" Seeing that Xiaoling Yu didn't seem to be joking or lying, the female celestial emperor's expression changed. However, she still firmly said, "Your Excellency must have sensed wrongly. If Your Excellency leaves now, I can ask Celestial Sovereign Lan Yao to not pursue Your Excellency's actions. Forget it. It's not like I haven't seen Immortal Blue Jade before. She can't do anything to me." Xiaoling Yu disdainfully replied before saying, "I advise you to hand her over. Otherwise, even if Immortal Blue Jade is here, your Heaven's Incense School won't be able to live in peace." The middle-aged female Immortal Emperor knew that he was not boasting. The close to 2,000 puppets around the garden could easily raise the Heaven's Incense School to the ground. Immortal Blue Jade was indeed not here. Even if the Heaven's Incense School could force this person and the puppets out, they would suffer great losses. The middle-aged female Immortal Emperor pondered for a moment before saying, "Tell these puppets to stop attacking first. I'll go out and ask." Xiaoling Yu could not find where Anya was. Since she had decided to go out and ask, he naturally would not stop her. With a thought, the puppets remained motionless. Not long after, the middle-aged female Immortal Emperor brought a younger-looking fellow disciple over. The young female Immortal Emperor walked to a corner of the garden and chanted a few words. A cave entrance appeared. "She's in here." Xiaoling Yu discovered that he had sensed Anya's presence and rushed into the cave first. Mei Ling is too presumptuous. Let's see how she's going to deal with this. The middle-aged female Immortal Emperor's face was filled with anger as she followed Xiaoling Yu into the cave. The cave was not very long. At the end, there were a few tightly shut secret rooms. Xiaoling Yu arrived in front of one of the secret rooms and slammed open the stone door. Chapter 417. "Stop!" Xiaoling Yu shouted, but she didn't dare to rush forward. Judging from the current situation, she could definitely take Anya's life in an instant. After all, Anya had just ascended for less than 10,000 years. It was impossible for her to be like Xiaoling Yu, who didn't fear an immortal emperor. It could even be said that in front of an immortal emperor, Anya was as weak as a baby. "I advise you to calm down. Otherwise, she will immediately turn into ashes in front of you." Mei Ling sneered. At this time, the middle-aged female Immortal Emperor also arrived at the door of the secret room. She said with an ugly expression, "Junior sister Mei Ling, what are you doing?" "Senior sister Dan Rong, what I am doing is beneficial to our Heaven's Incense School." Mei Ling said calmly. "I think you are asking for trouble." the middle-aged Dan Rong was so angry that her body trembled. She had already seen Xiaoling Yu's strength. "Senior Sister Dan Rong, are you going to stand on the side of an outsider?" Mei Ling asked. "Humph. I will only stand on the side of the Heaven's Incense School's rules," Dan Rong said angrily. "Senior Sister Dan Rong, shut up. Quickly let her go." Dan Rong refused to explain. "Senior Sister Dan Rong, you are also a smart person. Can't you see the current situation? Even if I let her go, do you think this person will let it go?" Mei Ling shook her head and said, "I only know that if you let her go, there is still room for improvement. Otherwise, it will be difficult to deal with." Dan Rong was still calm. "Senior Sister Dan Rong, I know that you are cautious, but don't be too timid. After all, our Heaven's Incense School is a top sect in the immoral world. Moreover, we have a celestial sovereign. What do we have to fear?" Mei Ling said very confidently. "Damn it. If Celestial Sovereign Lanyao was here, wouldn't it be easier?" Dan Rong cursed in her heart. Then, she said with a cold face, "If Master was here, I am afraid she would personally end your life. I advise you not to be stubborn. Senior Sister Dan Rong, don't scare me. Since I dared to do this, there must be a reason why Master won't be angry. In fact, the reason why I did this was because Master told me to." Mei Ling had a fearless look on her face. "What?" Dan Rong's expression, and said, "Master is a dignified celestial sovereign, a top expert of the three realms. How could she teach you to do this?" Mei Ling smiled and said, "Senior apprentice sister, you have a stubborn personality. That's why Master put you in charge of the sect's internal discipline. There are some things that Master won't tell you. Just because you don't know doesn't mean it doesn't exist." "Ha ha." Xiaoling Yu suddenly laughed. When Mei Ling's attention was diverted to him because of the laughter, a cold light shot out from his body. By the time Mei Ling noticed the cold light, it was already right in front of her. Her reaction wasn't slow. Almost in the next moment, a handkerchief-shaped magic treasure blocked in front of her. However, the cold light easily penetrated the handkerchief and hit her left shoulder. It carried her body forward until it hit the wall of the secret room and stopped. At this moment, Xiaoling Yu was already standing in front of Anya. Mei Ling first spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. Then, she looked at her left shoulder and saw a scimitar that was as thin as a cicada's wing and almost transparent. The scimitar was launched without any warning and seemed to be invisible. Mei Ling did not expect her supreme great immortal handkerchief to be so easily broken, so she was easily hit. The transparent scimitar had been completely refined by Xiaoling Yu with the purple-black chaotic true fire. It was more powerful in Xiaoling Yu's hands than in Great Thief Nia Yu's. When it was launched by the original body, there was no aura fluctuation at all. It was the best way to launch a sneak attack. Mei Ling was like most bandits. Even though she had a hostage in hand, once she encountered a threat, the first thing she thought of was to save her own life, not to kill the hostage. Xiaoling Yu suddenly launched a sneak attack just now because he was betting that Mei Ling would not kill Anya in a flash, but would protect herself first. Of course, he also heard that Dan Rong's persuasion was useless, so he decided to take the gamble. Anya's situation was very bad. Even though Mei Ling's palm had left her sweaty forehead, her eyes were still closed and her body collapsed on Xiaoling Yu's back. She has been hit by the soul transfer seal. Without Senior Immortal Lanyao's help, you can't save her. Although Mei Ling was nailed to the wall by the scimitar, she still smiled. Xiaoling Yu's face became even gloomier. He immediately poured his mind into Anya's body. Anya's body basically did not suffer any damage, but her immortal nascent soul was a little withered. The unforgiving divine sword that Xiaoling Yu gave her in the cultivation world quietly flew around Anya's pink and cute immortal nascent soul. When his mind entered Anya's sea of consciousness again, Xiaoling Yu found that Anya's soul was currently shrouded in a misty fog. His mind could not penetrate the fog and could not detect the situation of Anya's soul. That fog should be the soul transfer seal that Mei Ling mentioned. It was a seal technique similar to a curse technique. Xiaoling Yu did not know much about the soul transfer seal, but he knew that it was definitely not good for Anya. He said to Dan Rong, "Is it true that only senior immortal Lan Yao can remove this soul transfer seal?" Dan Rong's expression was very complicated. "The soul transfer seal is our sect's secret technique. I have never practiced it, but I know that the soul transfer seal used by an immortal emperor can only be removed by an immortal venerable expert. Moreover, that immortal venerable must understand the seal technique of the cultivator who used the soul transfer seal. This soul transfer seal was used by junior martial sister Mei Ling. In the entire immortal realm, only master can remove it." Humph. The anger in Xiaoling Yu's heart burned uncontrollably. With a thought, the scimitar suddenly moved horizontally, cutting Mei Ling's body into two along her chest. Then, a ball of purple-black chaotic true fire flew out and turned the two halves of Mei Ling's body into ashes. "Please return to Senior Immortal Lan Yao. If she is injured in any way before she returns, I want your entire Heaven's Incense School to be buried with her," Xiaoling Yu said in a gloomy voice. "Senior Martial Sister Mei Ling is already dead. I'm afraid that Master already knows. She should be back soon. Please wait patiently. Once Master returns, she will definitely remove the soul transfer seal for her," Dan Rong said helplessly. Xiaoling Yu did not say anything. She carried Anya out of the secret room and out of the cave, but she did not leave the Heaven's Incense School. In the ruins of the Heaven's Incense School, Xiaoling Yu sat cross-legged and held Anya's body in her arms. She quietly combed her hair and tidied her clothes. Her face was filled with tenderness and worry. The nearly 2,000 armored puppets were like loyal and brave guards. They surrounded Xiaoling Yu in the center, not allowing any Heaven's Incense School cultivators to come close. The Heaven's Incense School disciples were all in danger. No one dared to come close. Everyone was very worried and secretly prayed that Senior Immortal Lan Yao would return quickly. Ever since the Heaven's Incense School became a top sect in the immortal world, no one had dared to be so presumptuous in the Heaven's Incense School's territory. Moreover, the Heaven's Incense School could not do anything to her. The Heaven's Incense School disciples, who were originally proud of being a disciple of the Heaven's Incense School, now felt a deep sense of defeat. However, everyone believed that as long as Senior Immortal Lan Yao returned, all problems would be solved. There had been a lot of major events in the immortal world recently. First, the entrance to the Divine Tomb had appeared on the Divine Tomb continent. Then, the Wondrous Pill School, which had controlled the Piaoxiang continent for countless years, had perished. These two events had caused the immortal world, which had been peaceful for many years, to gradually become lively. Now, the Heaven's Incense School's territory, where the top expert of the immortal world, Fairy Lan Yao, resided, had a male cultivator. No one dared to move, which surprised the cultivators of the immortal world. Paper could not wrap fire. Xiaoling Yu had been in the Heaven's Incense School's territory for less than 2 years when the news quickly spread in the immortal world. Fairy Lan Yao only returned to the Heaven's Incense School after 200 years. Before she saw Xiaoling Yu, she first saw the 2,000 armored puppets. Her originally angry expression became even more unsightly because she recognized these armored puppets. Fairy Lan Yao's appearance was very good, and she was also very playful. Although she had cultivated for countless years, there was still a hint of childishness on her face. She was the dream lover of many experts in the immortal world. However, at this moment, her face was frosty and her beautiful eyes, which were as narrow as blades, were staring at Xiaoling Yu. Flying into the air, Fairy Lan Yao said to Xiaoling Yu, "It's really searching high and low only to find it without any effort. I didn't expect you to deliver yourself to me." Xiaoling Yu didn't get up. He was still sitting cross-legged with Anya in his arms. He said coldly, "Let's not talk about the past. I only want to ask you, Fairy, why did you use the soul transfer seal on my wife? Do you want to remove the soul-shifting seal?" Fairy Lan Yao sneered arrogantly and said, "Don't think that just because you have some ability, you can be presumptuous in front of a senior immortal. Everyone below the senior immortal is an ant. You are just a slightly stronger ant. Do I need to explain anything to an ant? If that's the case, then I'll let fairies see the means of an ant. Xiaoling Yu put Anya into his divine palace. At the same time, he commanded all the armored puppets to attack with divine light. Fairy Blue Jade's strong words made it clear that she would not easily compromise with Xiaoling Yu. Xiaoling Yu was even more unlikely to give up and leave. Even if he could not beat a senior immortal, when a real man encountered such a situation, even if he lost his life, why not fight? Countless divine lights soared into the sky like thousands of arrows. Even Fairy Lan Yao had to be careful when dealing with them. In the divine tomb, Fairy Lan Yao had seen the power of these divine light attacks. However, there were only 2,000 armored puppets here. Fairy Blue Jade didn't dodge. She waited for the divine light to get close before gently waving her sleeve. A colorful silk circled around her body and blocked all of the divine light. However, her body was blown back several thousand feet. At this moment, Xiaoling Yu had already disappeared into nothingness. He quickly pounced towards Fairy Lan Yao. Your divine clothes are divine, but they are useless against me. Chapter 418. It really is useless against a celestial sovereign's divine sense. Xiaoling Yu sighed inwardly. Fortunately, he didn't expect the invisibility divine robe to be able to fool a celestial sovereign's divine sense. Before the colorful silk wrapped around him, he had already dodged. Since the invisibility divine robe was useless, Xiaoling Yu didn't waste his time and energy maintaining the invisibility divine robe. He immediately revealed himself. Fairy Lan Yao wasn't too surprised that her attack didn't hit. However, when she was about to attack again, the 2,000 armored puppets shot countless beams of divine light at her. Fairy Lan Yao used the colorful silk to block, but her body was unavoidably sent flying far away. Although the attacks of the 2,000 armored puppets could restrain Fairy Lan Yao, they couldn't cause her any harm. Leave behind your divine abode in these armored puppets, and I can overlook your impudent actions in the Heaven's Incense School. I can also remove the soul-shifting seal on your wife. After Fairy Blue Jade stabilized herself, she generously suggested. A celestial sovereign is actually like this. You've really opened my eyes. Xiaoling Yu angrily cursed in response. Then, his body was wrapped in purple-black primal chaos true fire. He fearlessly charged forward again. In the face of such a huge gap in cultivation, your special techniques are useless. Fairy Blue Jade laughed in disdain. Then, countless strands of colorful silk flew over from all directions. Xiaoling Yu only saw a blur before he was surrounded by the colorful silk. He couldn't dodge at all. The colorful silk was a divine tool that Fairy Lan Yao often used. Although it was afraid of being burned by the primal chaos true fire, it could still trap Xiaoling Yu for a while, preventing Xiaoling Yu from moving. After Fairy Lan Yao easily blocked another wave of divine light from the armored puppets, a long needle with divine light whistled out. This was Fairy Lan Yao's world-piercing needle. The divine world-piercing needle pierced through the layers of colorful silk, then pierced through the primordial flame in Xiaoling Yu's chest. With just one blow, Xiaoling Yu was already severely injured. Although he was not very afraid of the Celestial Prime, it was impossible for him to kill the Celestial Prime. Moreover, if he had not chosen to escape from the beginning, it was very likely that he would have been injured by the Celestial Prime. Xiaoling Yu calmed down after the world-piercing divine needle pierced through his chest. He used the purplish-black primordial flame of chaos to force the colorful silk back. Then, he waited for the armored puppets to release another round of divine light before he put himself and the armored puppets into his spiritual abode. Before Fairy Blue Jade stabilized herself, the divine dwelling had already sped up. In a flash, it disappeared from the Heaven's Incense School. The speed of the divine dwellings is much faster than before. Just as Fairy Blue Jade was about to chase, she was surprised to find that the divine palace had already flown out of the range of her divine sense. The speed of the divine dwellings was indeed much faster than before because Xiaoling Yu had almost completely refined the divine dwellings. After the quality of the primordial flame of chaos had greatly increased, he could refine any magic treasure much faster. First, Xiaoling Yu quickly flew to the teleportation plaza of the Myriad Flower City. Then, he teleported there without waiting in line. Before he teleported, he did not forget to send a message to the person in charge of the Myriad Flower City's investigation department. After teleporting several times, he stopped at a continent called the Pingwang continent and entered the city of Pingwang. Not long after, the person in charge of the investigation department of the Myriad Flower City arrived at Pingwang and brought Xiaoling Yu to the investigation department of the Pingwang city. Xiaoling Yu's physical injuries were not very serious, but he still needed some time to fully recover. However, he was not in a hurry to recover. Instead, he said to the two people in charge of the investigation department, "Help me contact Elder Qi and ask him to come here. The sooner the better." When Elder Qi arrived at the Pingwang continent, 500 years had already passed. Fortunately, the fog only enveloped Anya's soul. Anya was still unconscious, but she did not lose her life. Xiaoling Yu naturally guarded Anya. He paid close attention to Anya at all times, afraid that she would be in danger. "Brother Xiao, what are you going to do?" Elder Qi had clearly heard about Anya's situation. After arriving, he knew that Xiaoling Yu was anxious, so he did not beat around the bush. "Elder Qi, you can't remove the soul-shifting seal, right?" Xiaoling Yu asked with some hope. Elder Qi shook his head and said, "The soul-shifting seal of the Heaven's Incense School is very powerful and special. If it was cast by a cultivator below the Emperor level, I can remove it. However, if it was cast by an Emperor-level expert of the Heaven's Incense School, only Fairy Lan Yao can remove it." "Elder Qi, I agree to your previous suggestion," Xiaoling Yu said as calmly as possible. Elder Qi's eyes lit up when he heard this. He said, "Brother Xiao can mobilize all the descendants of Earth in the immortal world, including my old bones." Xiaoling Yu nodded and said, "If we attack the Heaven's Incense School, how confident are we in winning?" Elder Qi said confidently, "It will be difficult to hurt Fairy Lan Yao, but it will be easy to flatten the Heaven's Incense School." However, after thinking about it, Elder Qi said, "It's easy to defeat the Heaven's Incense School. With me restraining Fairy Lan Yao, the rest of the people from the Heaven's Incense School are nothing to be afraid of. They don't have much experience in battle, so their combat strength can't be that strong. However, the Heaven's Incense School is a top sect in the immortal world. Not to mention their deep roots, they also have deep relationships with many other large sections. Not to mention others, Hu Yunzi of the Heavenly Dao sect has a good relationship with Fairy Lan Yao." "Elder Qi means that we can't attack by force?" Xiaoling Yu asked with a frown. Elder Qi shook his head and said, "It's not that we can't, but we need to prepare. Moreover, we need to act quickly. We can't give them too much time to react. Once they delay us, we will most likely suffer heavy losses. Don't you think it's inappropriate to mobilize so many people for my matter?" Xiaoling Yu probed again. You should think about this carefully. If you want to fight, we'll fight," Elder Qi said with a relaxed smile. "Today, everyone charged for me. In the future, I will shed my blood for everyone," Xiaoling Yu said generously. "Actually, when I came, I already notified everyone. At most, in 1,000 years, at least half of the emperors will be here. When that time comes, we can take action. We can't gather all of our forces here in such a short period of time," Elder Qi said. "I'm afraid she can't wait 1,000 years," Xiaoling Yu said worriedly. "With me here, you can rest assured. Although I can't remove the soul transfer seal, I can still control it," Elder Qi comforted. With this, Xiaoling Yu was relieved. While waiting for the Earth's descendants to arrive, Xiaoling Yu left Anya in Elder Qi's care. He continued to refine the armored puppets. The Earth's descendants were very secretive. Their actions were also very secretive. Even if something big was about to happen, there wouldn't be too much of a disturbance. Her opponent had escaped. In order to prevent her opponent from coming back, Fairy Lan Yao naturally had to continue guarding the Heaven's Incense School. She didn't know that Xiaoling Yu was an Earth's descendant. Otherwise, her choice might have changed. 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Fairy Lan Yao, who was in seclusion in a secret room, suddenly had a change in expression. Then, her figure disappeared. In the next moment, Fairy Lan Yao appeared at the entrance of the Heaven's Incense School. At this moment, there were more than 2,500 armored puppets standing in a neat row at the entrance. The divine light shining from their bodies condensed into a thin aura that made one's heart palpitate. Xiaoling Yu stood above these armored puppets and looked coldly at the entrance of the Heaven's Incense School. Perhaps it was because Xiaoling Yu had charged into the Heaven's Incense School too easily last time. Ever since he was forced to escape, the Heaven's Incense School had sealed the entrance and activated the sect protection formation. Fairy Lan Yao had been frightened earlier because Xiaoling Yu had attacked the Heaven's Incense School's formation. Fairy Lan Yao narrowed her eyes and said, "You dare to come again?" Xiaoling Yu replied, "If you agree to remove the soul-shifting seal from my wife and apologize for it, I can stop." Fairy Lan Yao replied in the same tone, "If you leave behind these armored puppets and the divine palace, I will remove the soul-shifting seal for your wife. Then your Heaven's Incense School will disappear from the immortal world like the Wondrous Pill School." With that, Xiaoling Yu took out his divine palace. With a thought, all the Earth's descendant experts he had stored in his divine palace appeared in front of the Heaven's Incense School. After so many years of recuperation, the injuries that the world-piercing divine needle had caused to Xiaoling Yu had naturally healed. He was now in peak condition. Fairy Lan Yao's heart skipped a beat when she saw nearly 200 Emperor-level experts appear in front of her entrance. However, she then smiled and said, "No matter how many immortal emperors there are, they can't do anything to a celestial prime. Don't even think about breaking this sect protection formation. I advise you to quickly retreat. Otherwise, I don't mind killing you all. The Heaven's Incense School isn't the only place with celestial primes." Elder Qi slowly flew over from afar. His voice reverberated in everyone's ears. "I was wondering who could invite so many immortal emperor experts at once. It turns out that it's you, the remnants of Earth." Fairy Lan Yao said coldly. At this time, the childishness on her face was gone, replaced by a solemn expression. Elder Qi transmitted his voice to Xiaoling Yu, "Things might change if you delay. You can attack now. Kill!" Xiaoling Yu shouted. The aura around his body continued to rise. The purple-black primal chaos fire had already wrapped around him. Roar! More than 2,500 armored puppets responded. Divine light filled the sky and blasted toward the entrance of the Heaven's Incense School. The nearly 200 immortal emperors in the air also attacked at the same time. Streaks of light formed from immortal talismans and immortal treasures shot toward the entrance of the Heaven's Incense School. When Fairy Lan Yao saw this, she first used colored silk to block the divine light of the armored puppets. Then, she returned to the base. "All disciples of the Heaven's Incense School, listen to my orders. A strong enemy has invaded. Everyone, prepare to fight." Chapter 419. Fairy Blue Jade was very clear about the power of the Heaven's Incense School's sect-protecting formation. It wouldn't be able to last long against such a lineup, especially when there were immortal sovereigns among them. Immortal sovereigns possessed divine power and could unleash the full power of divine artifacts. Fairy Blue Jade couldn't allow the immortal sovereigns to attack so recklessly. Therefore, after reminding the Heaven's Incense School disciples to prepare for battle, Fairy Blue Jade charged out again. She first sent a message and then went to find Elder Qi. A female cultivator in the Myriad Flower City looked at her communication bead and her expression changed greatly. She then entered the teleportation formation and left the Myriad Flower continent. As Fairy Blue Jade and Elder Qi fought, they left the Heaven's Incense School's base. No one knew where they went to fight. If the two immortal sovereigns fought in the air not far from the ground of the Myriad Flower continent wouldn't be able to withstand it. If the two immortal sovereigns fought with all their might, it wouldn't be a problem for them to destroy a continent in the immortal realm. Elder Qi didn't want his fight with Fairy Blue Jade to affect Xiaoling Yu and the other Earth Descendants' attacks on the Heaven's Incense School. Fairy Blue Jade also didn't want to affect the sect-protecting formation's defense, nor did she want to affect the Heaven's Incense School disciples. Therefore, the two tacitly agreed to fight in the sky above the myriad flower continent. The battlefield of immortal sovereigns was usually in the sky of the immortal realm because it could be destroyed at will. The Heaven's Incense School's base wasn't in chaos. Dan Rong and the other immortal emperors gathered together to maintain the sect-protecting formation. The immortal monarch disciples gathered the Heaven's Incense School's elite disciples to prepare for battle. The sect-protecting formation bought the Heaven's Incense School disciples time to prepare, but it couldn't protect them forever. Fairy Bluejade had already sent people to ask for reinforcements. Whether or not reinforcements could arrive in time depended on how long the sect-protecting formation could last. As one of the top sects in the immortal world, the Heaven Incense School was even more powerful than the Nanhua Immortal School. Not only did the Heaven Incense School have an immortal venerable, they also had twice as many immortal emperors as the Nanhua Immortal School. They should be able to hold on for a while with the sect-protecting Grand Array. Close to 200 immortal emperors of Earth's descendants, in addition to more than 2,500 armored puppets that could release divine light attacks, they were constantly bombarding at the same time. Moreover, they were not restrained at all. Their attacks were definitely not to be underestimated. It was definitely not a problem for them to break this formation. However, before they came, they were clear that they had to break this formation as soon as possible. Therefore, their attacks were exceptionally powerful. The protective formation of the Heaven's Incense School was extremely wondrous as well. It did not seem to be damaged at all, but as long as an attack arrived, countless colorful petals would appear out of nowhere, blocking everything that came their way. Moreover, it did not seem to be damaged at all. Xiaoling Yu did not remain idle either. As he used his mind to control the armored puppets to attack, he also used his chaotic primordial fire to transform into a purplish-black fire dragon to attack the Heaven's Incense School's protective array. Such a huge commotion at the Heaven's Incense School naturally alarmed all the cultivators on the myriad flower continent. However, many cultivators only glanced from afar before retreating. Many cultivators felt that something big was about to happen on the myriad flower continent, so they all left. It was obvious that someone dared to attack the Heaven's Incense School. The attacker was not an ordinary force, so no one dared to rashly approach the battlefield. When Xiaoling Yu killed Mei Ling, Fairy Bluejade herself took more than 200 years to get back. The reinforcements she could ask for would definitely take at least twice as long to get here. Without the 2,000 armored puppets and Xiaoling Yu's purplish-black primal chaos true fire, it would be very difficult for the 200 immortal emperors to break through the sect-protecting formation. However, there were no ifs in reality. Under the bombardment of the Earth-descended powerhouses and the armored puppets, the Heaven's Incense School's protective array only lasted for less than 50 years before it was broken. When the array collapsed, the Heaven's Incense School's emperor-level powerhouses who maintained the entire array spat out blood, their faces as pale as paper. The immortal emperors of the Heaven's Incense School had more or less suffered some internal injuries. The Earth-descended powerhouses had been attacking continuously for so many years, so they had naturally expended a lot of energy. However, Xiaoling Yu's armored puppets were different. Xiaoling Yu had stored many godstones in their bodies to provide them with energy. They were almost always in peak condition. Moreover, these armored puppets had extremely strong defenses. As long as they were not attacked by divine weapons, there would not be any problems. They were also fierce and fearless. When they charged together, the Heaven's Incense School powerhouses who had lost the protection of the formation and were prepared to fight were all terrified. More than 2,500 armored puppets charged into the Heaven's Incense School first. Xiaoling Yu led nearly 200 Earth-descended powerhouses and followed closely behind. The Heaven's Incense School's resistance was like a thin piece of paper that could be broken with a poke. After all, female cultivators were still female. They were naturally inferior to male cultivators when it came to fighting. Furthermore, the Heaven's Incense School had not fought against any force, big or small, for many years. In the beginning, the immortal emperors were able to maintain order. However, when the immortal emperors could not even take care of themselves, the entire Heaven's Incense School was in chaos. The Earth-descended powerhouses were different. They were scattered all over the immortal realm and often had to carry out missions. Almost all of them had been through hundreds of battles. Their battle awareness and techniques far surpassed these female cultivators who were usually chattering. Moreover, the earth-descendant powerhouses had been bullied by the various forces of the immortal realm for many years. It was rare for them to have a chance to vent their anger. Moreover, it was such a large-scale operation. Naturally, they were all fighting with all their might, even if the opponent was a seemingly weak woman. Fairy Lanyao knew that the Heaven's Incense School's disciples were not strong enough. That was why she had sent people to ask for reinforcements. However, before the reinforcements had arrived and the sect's protective formation had been broken, she finally realized the severity of the problem. When Fairy Lanyao sensed that the immortal emperors of the Heaven's Incense School's immortal emperor's soul jade tablets had shattered in her storage ring, she stopped fighting with Elder Qi and said, "Stop. I agree to remove the soul-shifting seal on that woman." Elder Qi smiled and then flew down, telling Shaolin Yu and the other Earth descendants to stop attacking. Fairy Lanyao also flew down. When she saw that the originally beautiful base had been reduced to ruins and the Heaven's Incense School's disciples' faces filled with fear and embarrassment, her captivating red lips couldn't help but twitch. Just for one person, you made such a big fuss. Was it worth it? Even if you won, you still lost a dozen or so immortal emperors, Fairy Lanyao said with a cold smile. At this moment, Shaolin Yu discovered that although they won, it was just as Fairy Lanyao said. A dozen or so immortal emperors from Earth had died in battle. However, in a battle of this scale, it was impossible to not have any losses. After Shaolin Yu calmed down, she still felt a bit guilty. This is not just for one person, but also for our pride. We will use our own strength to tell a large sect like your Heaven's Incense School that sometimes you have to be careful. It's war, so how can there be no sacrifices? Elder Qi replied with a smile. You have displayed your strength, but this will also alert the various powers of the immortal realm. I want to see how you will deal with this in the future, Fairy Lanyao said with a cold snort. Today, we can defeat your Heaven's Incense School. In the future, we will definitely be able to defeat other powerful enemies. In ancient times, our ancestors from Earth were able to sweep through the world. Now, our descendants from Earth also have the courage to be enemies with the world. Shaolin Yu replied with an indifferent tone. Let's not talk nonsense. Invite her out. I will remove the soul-shifting seal for her. Fairy Lanyao didn't have the mood to continue arguing. With a thought, the unconscious Anya appeared in Shaolin Yu's arms. Shaolin Yu carried Anya and took a few steps forward, arriving in front of Fairy Lanyao. The current situation didn't allow Fairy Lanyao to continue being tough. If she didn't back down, she would be the only one left from the Heaven's Incense School. Fairy Lanyao didn't do much. She only swept her sleeve across Anya's head and the fog surrounding Anya's soul disappeared. Okay, you should go, Fairy Lanyao said with a wave of her sleeve. She looked very tired. Shaolin Yu invited Anya back into the god's abode and said, if you had agreed to remove the soul-shifting seal before the battle, we would have retreated. However, we have suffered such great losses. Fairy, do you think this is over? Fairy Lanyao knew that the other party wouldn't let this go. After all, the other party had won. The defeated party would never be able to negotiate. If they continued to fight, Fairy Lanyao might be fine, but the other disciples of the Heaven's Incense School would definitely be slaughtered. Thus, she said very rationally, what other conditions do you have? We don't ask for immortal stones or divine stones. We also don't ask for immortal treasures or divine artifacts. We only ask that you, Fairy Lanyao, apologize for this matter. With that, Shaolin Yu pointed around and said, in front of these fellow immortals who are watching from afar. Fairy Lanyao was more willing to accept conditions such as immortal stones or divine stones, but she had no other choice. Thus, after pondering for a long time, she nodded. Fairy Lanyao's apology spread for tens of thousands of kilometers. Many of the braver spectators heard it clearly. These spectators were all extremely shocked. To be able to force Fairy Lanyao to this point, they could naturally tell who had won. Mei Ling, who had pursued the culprit, had already been killed. Because of this, the Heaven's Incense School had also suffered great losses. Not only had their base been reduced to ruins, but they had also lost nearly 40 immortal emperors. In addition, Fairy Lanyao's apology made the Heaven's Incense School lose all face. Xiaoling Yu and Elder Qi felt that this was enough. There was no need to continue fighting. After all, no matter how they fought, Fairy Lanyao would be fine. However, the descendants of Earth would definitely suffer more casualties. Thus, after Fairy Lanyao apologized, the descendants of Earth disappeared with the 2,000 armored puppets. Xiaoling Yu and Elder Qi, on the other hand, calmly flew away under the fearful gazes of countless Heaven Incense School disciples and the shock of countless spectating cultivators. After this battle, Xiaoling Yu used the powerful support of the descendants of Earth to force Fairy Lanyao to remove the soul transfer seal on Anya. Although he succeeded, he was also completely tied to the descendants of Earth. Chapter 420. Anya gradually woke up after the soul transfer seal was removed. Anya felt her eyes sting when she saw the person she missed day and night looking at her with tenderness and concern. However, she was stubborn and didn't shed any tears. Instead, she silently threw herself into Xiaoling Yu's arms, feeling the warmth that she was no longer familiar with but always missed. After hugging for a while, Anya began to talk about her life after Xiaoling Yu's ascension. Shuntian Academy did well in the cultivation world with countless students. Its reputation and influence grew day by day. Shuntian Academy's cultivation ideology was also recognized by many cultivators in the cultivation world. Anya didn't ascend to the immortal world until 1300 years after Xiaoling Yu ascended to the devil world. She had been cultivating alone on the Wanhua continent and rarely came out. Anya had the merciless divine sword. She knew that she was in trouble because of her wealth, so she didn't dare to show her face in public. Moreover, she was a sword cultivator and didn't need many immortal stones to cultivate. However, Anya later found that she still needed to know more about the immortal world and its cultivation methods so that she could seek opportunities and breakthroughs. Cultivating behind closed doors was a taboo for cultivators. Therefore, cultivators would travel outside whenever they encountered a bottleneck or just made a major breakthrough. When Anya was traveling, the Heaven Incense School happened to be recruiting new disciples. She went to take the test. With Anya's aptitude, she should have been able to pass the Heaven's Incense School's test without a hitch. However, Anya didn't expect that it was because of her great aptitude that the examiner had invited Mei Ling over. As an immortal emperor expert, Mei Ling was naturally able to see through Anya and had evil thoughts about her. Mei Ling pretended to make things difficult for Anya, which made Anya, who was always proud and respected by millions of people in the cultivation world, very angry. Therefore, Anya talked back to Mei Ling, which gave Mei Ling an excuse to imprison Anya. After being imprisoned for a few months, Mei Ling came to the secret room and said that she wanted Anya to cooperate with her to activate a secret technique to transfer Anya's excellent talent to her. Once the transfer was successful, Mei Ling would have the exceptional aptitude of Anya. Moreover, she would be in the immortal emperor stage. This way, Mei Ling would become an extremely powerful immortal emperor stage sword cultivator. Actually, this kind of thing happened in the Heaven Incense School and many other large sects of the immoral world. However, this method was too vicious, so the large sects of the immortal world didn't dare to use it openly. It was already very difficult for immortal emperors to advance to immortal venerables. Moreover, the divine tribulation was so difficult to pass. It was no wonder that many experts in the immoral world would think of some secret techniques to change their innate talent. They would use some unorthodox methods to allow themselves to go further on the path of cultivation. This kind of secret technique was known to all the big shots of the various sects and clans. In fact, they all tacitly approved of it. That was why Mei Ling dared to be so confident in front of Dan Rong. However, this kind of secret technique mostly required the cooperation of the passive party in order to maximize its effectiveness. Therefore, when Anya refused, Mei Ling could only imprison her and wait for her to despair. Generally speaking, when ordinary cultivators were imprisoned like this, they would be able to withstand it at the beginning. However, when there was no hope, they would give in. After all, this kind of secret technique wouldn't take the victim's life. It would only make the victim's aptitude become very ordinary. When Anya signed up for the test, she said that she didn't belong to any sect or clan and had just ascended. Mei Ling never thought that this matter would become so difficult to resolve. This was the general situation. Xiaoling Yu was originally very angry. However, when he saw that Anya was only a little frightened and wasn't injured at all, and that he had taught the Heaven Incense School a lesson, his anger subsided. Anya was trapped in the cell. She had thought that Xiaoling Yu would come to save her, but she didn't have much hope. After all, Xiaoling Yu had just ascended. How could he deal with a top sect like the Heaven Incense School? Moreover, how did he know about her situation? Anya even suspected that Xiaoling Yu had come to the immoral realm from the demon realm. Even so, Anya wouldn't despair, let alone give in, even if she died. However, Anya was able to persevere because of the merciless sword. It was because Mei Ling discovered that Anya had the merciless sword that she wanted to keep Anya's consciousness. Otherwise, Mei Ling wouldn't be able to refine the merciless sword. As for the soul transfer seal, Xiaoling Yu and Anya didn't know much about it. However, after Xiaoling Yu came looking for her, Mei Ling had no choice but to take a step back and settle for the second best. It's all in the past. In the future, no one will let you suffer anymore. After listening to Anya, Xiaoling Yu hugged Anya even tighter and spoke gently but firmly. You should protect me. However, I, Anya, have never liked being protected since I was young. It's the same in the cultivation world and the immoral realm. I also want to become stronger. I believe I can do it. Anya shook her head and spoke confidently. At this time, there was no one else in the divine abode. After leaving the myriad flower continent, the powerhouses of the earth descendants all left. Elder Qi also said a few words and left a heavy token for Xiaoling Yu before leaving. Now that the strength and traces of the earth descendants had been exposed, Elder Qi and the powerhouses of the earth descendants had to prepare well. This time, they had made a move against the top sects of the immoral realm. In the future, they would also counterattack. At the very least, Fairy Lanyao wouldn't give up so easily. After leaving the myriad flower continent, Xiaoling Yu also invited Anya out of the divine abode. The two of them weren't in a hurry to go anywhere. Whenever they came across a continent in the immoral realm, they would stop and travel for a while. For many years, Xiaoling Yu hadn't relaxed. This time, he could accompany Anya, who wasn't very familiar with the immoral realm, to relax. The reason Xiaoling Yu came to the immoral realm was to find Anya. Now that this most important task had been completed, he felt much more relaxed. However, while one burden had been taken off, another even heavier burden had been placed on his shoulders. Perhaps it was because he had experienced a lot over the years, so Xiaoling Yu was more familiar with his realm. Or perhaps it was because this relaxation allowed him to open up his mind. In short, after traveling for a while, Xiaoling Yu's cultivation naturally reached the peak of the late stage of the monarch realm. He could already begin to break through the next great realm of the 9-revolution chaos formula, which was the 5th revolution, the Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage. The Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage was a transition from the middle level to the upper level of the Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage. The strength of an early Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage cultivator was still within the scope of the immortal, devil, and monster realms. However, an intermediate Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage cultivator was already at the God realm. At the late Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage cultivator would gradually face the test of the Chaos Divinity Tribulation. If they could successfully pass it, they could ascend to the God realm. In theory, an early Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage cultivator's strength was about the same as an Immortal Emperor Stage cultivator's strength, and an intermediate Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage cultivator's strength was comparable to an Immortal Prime. However, at the late Chaos Divinity Transformation Stage cultivator's realm was one level higher than an Immortal Prime. Therefore, if one did not consider magic treasures, a late Chaos Divinity transformation stage cultivator was almost invincible in the three realms. However, Xiaoling Yu could not be said in theory. Before he reached the early Chaos Divinity transformation stage, he already had strength comparable to an immortal emperor. Once he successfully reached the early Chaos Divinity transformation stage, with his various means, he would definitely be able to fight an immortal prime like Blue Jade Fairy. He would not be defeated so easily like last time when he fought with Blue Jade Fairy. Now, because of Anya's matter, Xiaoling Yu had exposed the strength of the descendants of Earth. The descendants of Earth would definitely be in a difficult situation for a period of time. If Xiaoling Yu reached the early Chaos Divinity transformation stage, then the descendants of Earth would have two immortal primes, and they would have a stronger self-defense force. After traveling for nearly 1,000 years, Anya no longer had the interest to continue traveling. Xiaoling Yu brought her to the East Imperial Continent. After returning to the East Imperial Continent, Xiaoling Yu did not have any scruples and directly brought Anya back to the Nanhua Immortal Sect. After all, when he joined the Nanhua Immortal Sect, he had sworn that as long as the Nanhua Immortal Sect did not let Xiaoling Yu down, he would still be a disciple of the Nanhua Immortal Sect. First of all, this identity did not have any negative impact on him. Second of all, with his current strength, it was very unlikely that the Nanhua Immortal Sect would let him down. Therefore, he did not have to leave. After returning for less than 2 hours, Qing Xian came to the door. "Senior sister is here. Little brother has something to ask of senior sister." Xiaoling Yu smiled and welcomed her. Qing Xian was a little annoyed that Xiaoling Yu left without saying goodbye. Therefore, she snorted coldly. However, her expression became very gentle as she looked at Anya and said, "This must be sister-in-law, right? Little sister Anya." "Greetings, senior sister." Anya immediately bowed. "Sister-in-law, you don't have to be so polite. Junior brother Xiao and I have always been good friends. Sister-in-law, you and I are also family," Qing Xian said politely. However, her words were thought-provoking. Anya was not stupid. After hearing Qing Xian's words, she secretly glanced at Xiaoling Yu. However, she did not find any strange expression on Xiaoling Yu's face. Qing Xian did not need to be greeted. She sat down and ignored Xiaoling Yu. Instead, she looked at Anya and said curiously, "Sister-in-law's aura is very familiar to me. If I'm not wrong, sister-in-law, you should also be practicing the way of the sword." Anya nodded and replied, "My realm is not high. Senior sister, please teach me more in the future." Qing Xian said modestly, "I'm just a dabbler in the way of the sword. I've only done a little research. I can't compare to a pure way of the sword like sister-in-law. Moreover, in the cultivation of the way of the sword, one's current realm is not important. What's important is talent. Sister-in-law's talent and aptitude are both better than mine. We can communicate more in the future." Xiaoling Yu stood at the side with a helpless expression. He did not know how to interrupt. Qing Xian acted as if she was the host. She invited Anya to sit down and said, "Sister-in-law, you're very lucky. Junior brother Xiao crossed over from the demon realm and killed his way into the Heaven's Incense School alone for you. If anyone is willing to do this for me, their death will be worth it." Chapter 421. Senior sister, you're so outstanding. I'm sure you'll attract the admiration of many strong cultivators. Anya was in charge of an academy in the cultivation world, so she had a lot of work to do. Naturally, her words were thoughtful. "Junior brother Xiao, you seem to have said that you need my help with something. May I know what it is?" At this moment, Qing Xian seemed to have just noticed Xiaoling Yu. "I'm going to go into seclusion to break through, but I lack some materials. I want to ask senior sister to help me collect them through our channels," Xiaoling Yu quickly replied. Originally, Xiaoling Yu could also ask Zhongji for help. The speed of the Global Intelligence Organization's operation might be faster. However, all the organizations of Earth's descendants were actively preparing. Furthermore, he had just asked them for help. It was indeed inappropriate to trouble them at this time. "Give me the list of materials. I'll arrange for them to do it as soon as possible," Qing Xian nodded and said. Xiaoling Yu had already prepared the list of materials. He handed it to Qing Xian and thanked her profusely. "Then I won't bother you anymore." Qing Xian stood up and said to Anya, "Sister-in-law, if you have time, you can come and talk to me. I'm in the courtyard on the left." "Sure," Anya replied. Qing Xian didn't say much and left the pavilion. Xiaoling Yu was puzzled. When did Qing Xian move to the courtyard next to his? For someone like Qing Xian, she could choose almost any place in the Nanhua Moral Sect's encampment except for a few important places. However, Xiaoling Yu was puzzled why she chose to live next to him instead of anywhere else. What Xiaoling Yu didn't know was that when he left, Qing Xian couldn't help but come over to see if he was back. After a long time, she lost her patience and decided to live next to him and wait for him every day. "Your senior sister seems to treat you well." After Qing Xian left, Anya said in a strange tone. "Why? Are you jealous?" Xiaoling Yu smiled and hugged Anya from behind to hide the strange look on his face. "She's not jealous, but I can feel that she has feelings for you," Anya said softly. "That's because I've saved her life a few times, so she's grateful to me," Xiaoling Yu said nonchalantly. Anya turned around and stared at Xiaoling Yu's face as she asked, "You saved my life? Don't tell me it's the same situation as when you saved my life?" Back then, when Anya was seriously injured, Xiaoling Yu used the dual cultivation technique to save her. He naturally remembered this clearly. "Of course not," Xiaoling Yu replied without changing her expression. Anya turned around and leaned against Xiaoling Yu's chest as she muttered to herself, "I'm already unable to repay you for saving my life once. After saving your life a few times, I'm afraid." No wonder she's, at this moment, Xiaoling Yu couldn't help but think of Miaoing, who was still in the demon realm. 10 years after Xiaoling Yu returned to the Nanhua Moral Sect, Qing Xian sent over the materials that Xiaoling Yu needed. After that, Xiaoling Yu went into seclusion. Before going into seclusion, Xiaoling Yu could only leave Anya in Qing Xian's care. He had saved Qing Xian's life before and was also close friends with Qing Xian. He believed that Qing Xian would definitely treat Anya well. During the 10 years of waiting for Qing Xian to gather the materials, Qing Pingzi and Qing Wei had both come to find Xiaoling Yu to see if he had changed his mind. However, they were all disappointed. However, they were also glad that Xiaoling Yu didn't join the other party's faction. To be honest, Qing Xian was a little jealous of Anya. She felt that if Anya didn't exist, she would be Xiaoling Yu's first choice. However, Qing Xian was more curious. Xiaoling Yu was a demon cultivator while Anya was a sword cultivator. How did the two of them dual cultivate? Since Anya had ascended to the immortal realm, it proved that she was an immortal sword cultivator and not a demon sword cultivator. Qing Xian wasn't a very patient woman. She was also a straightforward person. Although she kept this question in her heart, she still found a chance to mention it to Anya. Anya blushed and replied, "This is related to the secret of his cultivation method, so I don't dare to speak carelessly. In fact, I'm not very clear about it either. In any case, it won't affect our dual cultivation at all." Qing Xian wasn't very satisfied with Anya's answer. However, she knew that Anya wasn't lying to her. There was no need for her to lie to her. During the days when Xiaoling Yu was in seclusion, Anya was always with Qing Xian. Now that Qing Xian was a free person, she didn't have to think about the conflict between factions. She was no longer greedy for the position of sect leader. As a late-stage emperor-level expert, she could naturally give Anya pointers in many aspects. Although Qing Xian was not a proper cultivator of the Tao of the Sword, her attainments in the Tao of the Sword were not shallow. After all, she had cultivated for countless years. Even if she occasionally took the time to study the Tao of the Sword, her cultivation in the Tao of the Sword was far beyond the current Anya. With Qing Xian's guidance and help, Anya naturally improved rapidly. The relationship between the two women also deepened day by day. It was also because Qing Xian spared no effort in helping her. Moreover, Qing Xian was also an expert in sword Dao that Anya felt grateful and close to Qing Xian from the bottom of her heart. Sometimes, Anya asked herself in her heart, if Qing Xian wanted to snatch Xiaoling Yu from her, would she draw her sword and fight with her? Xiaoling Yu, who was in seclusion, didn't care about the relationship between the two women. He didn't have the time to think about it. He first quietly sorted out his many years of encounters, then calmed himself down and adjusted his state of mind. After that, he began to charge towards the chaotic soul formation stage. Only by entering the chaotic soul formation stage could Xiaoling Yu be considered a true top expert in the immortal world. Only then could he be qualified to lead the descendants of Earth to restore the glory of the ancient experts of Earth. In Pingwang City, Xiaoling Yu once said, "Everyone fought for me today. In the future, I will shed my blood for everyone." This sentence wasn't said on a whim. It was a man's solemn promise. Xiaoling Yu had already engraved it in his heart. People often said that a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. In order to help him, the descendants of Earth had already lost more than 10 Emperor-level experts in battle. There was no reason for him not to do everything for everyone. However, there was also great danger in breaking through to the chaotic soul formation stage. According to Xiaoling Yu's current preparations, his success rate was only 40%. Xiaoling Yu couldn't fail, because failure meant that he would lose everything, including his life. Right now, the only way to increase his success rate was to raise the quality of his body to the level of a low-grade divine artifact. However, he didn't have suitable high-quality materials to transform his body. Fortunately, he found another way to raise the quality of his body in the alchemy grandmaster Mao Zhen's storage ring. It was the golden body bathing in flames. It was a method that used different kinds of flames to temper the body. As an alchemy grandmaster, Mao Zhen had a divine fire in his body. If he wanted to keep the divine fire in his body for a long time, he needed to have exquisite fire control techniques. He also needed to have a strong body quality. Mao Zhen's golden body bathing in flames was the golden body bathing in flames. Although this was an immortal Dao method, it was also suitable for Xiaoling Yu. Others thought that Xiaoling Yu was a pure devil Dao cultivator, but Xiaoling Yu knew that wasn't the case. He was just cultivating the chaotic force that had been demonized. However, the essence was still the chaotic force. Xiaoling Yu's body quality had undergone many transformations and improvements. Now, it had reached the quality of a quasi-divine artifact. It only needed one more step to be comparable to a low-grade divine artifact. With a body quality that was comparable to a low-grade divine artifact, he would be able to receive more and more powerful energy attacks. This would increase his success rate by at least 20%. However, this 20% success rate was very important. According to the requirements of the golden body bathing in flames, a quasi-divine artifact's body quality had to be tempered with divine fire. It just so happened that the primal chaos primordial fire in Xiaoling Yu's body was more powerful than ordinary divine fire. Moreover, Xiaoling Yu could completely control it. Therefore, he had the conditions to raise the quality of his body. Moreover, some of the materials that Xiaoling Yu had asked Qing Xian to help him collect were used in the golden body bathing in flames. 2 years after entering seclusion, Xiaoling Yu, who was in his spiritual abode, began to gradually release the suppression of the primal chaos primordial fire from his high-grade bloodline. The purple-black primal chaos primordial fire's power was gradually released. At the same time, it carefully tempered every part of Xiaoling Yu's body from head to toe. The process was painful, but in order to successfully advance to the chaotic soul formation stage, for his own sake, he could only endure it. However, this process seemed to take a very long time to end. Xiaoling Yu expected this process to be very long. In the beginning, he would calculate the time. However, as he calculated and calculated, he became numb to it and was too lazy to waste time on it. He could feel his body becoming stronger almost all the time. Xiaoling Yu did not feel that time was passing too slowly or how boring his days were. However, when he raised the quality of his entire body to be comparable to a low-grade divine artifact, he came out of seclusion and asked Anya. She told him that 200,000 years had passed. 200,000 years was nothing to Qing Xian. Therefore, she was able to calm Anya and make Anya wait patiently. After accompanying Anya for a while to comfort her, Shaolin Yu sent a message to Zhong Ji to ask about the current situation of the descendants of Earth. Then, he entered seclusion in his spiritual abode again. The situation of the descendants of Earth was very bad. The old sects of the immoral realm had sent experts to search for traces of the descendants of Earth. These old sects had been in the immoral realm for many years and naturally had a strong intelligence network. In addition, they were hiring mercenaries to issue related missions. This made the survival of the descendants of Earth very difficult. In the past, the old sects also knew of the existence of the descendants of Earth, but they did not pay attention to them. They thought that the descendants of Earth were hiding every day and would not affect the situation of the immoral realm at all. However, the battle between the descendants of Earth and the Heaven's Incense School made these old sects alert. In addition to Fairy Lan Yao's instigation, the situation inevitably became more and more tense. Chapter 422. Shaolin Yu had prepared everything he could. Whether or not he could successfully advance would depend on his luck. Shaolin Yu had always been very confident in his luck, so he was very determined to charge into the primal chaos soul formation stage. He either smeared the refined materials on his body or swallowed them. Then, he placed all the demonic crystals he had brought from the demon realm around himself. Shaolin Yu spread out his arms and used his mind to control the circulation of his cultivation technique. At the same time, his palms released a suction force, absorbing the energy within the demonic crystals into his body. Almost every moment, thousands of demonic crystals turned to dust due to the loss of energy. If it weren't for the fact that Shaolin Yu's body had reached the level of a low-grade divine tool, he definitely wouldn't have been able to withstand such a huge amount of energy. Fortunately, Shaolin Yu had prepared enough demonic crystals before coming to the immoral realm, so he could absorb as much energy as he wanted today. After all the demonic energy entered his body, it was directly transported to his dantian, where it formed a huge vortex next to the primal chaos demonic nascent soul. The primal chaos demonic nascent soul occupied the center of the vortex with its purple-black primal chaos fire, transforming and refining the demonic energy within the vortex. The four-colored halo circulating above the primal chaos demonic nascent soul's head also began to spin rapidly. As long as one was sufficiently prepared, danger generally wouldn't appear at the beginning of the breakthrough. Shaolin Yu's breakthrough this time was the same. The most crucial moment came when Shaolin Yu stopped absorbing energy from the outside world. His primal chaos demonic nascent soul and the halo above his head exploded at the same time. At this moment, his dantian was completely unable to contain and suppress the impact of the primal chaos demonic nascent soul and primal chaos fire. This caused Shaolin Yu's entire body to tremble, and a powerful aura violently surged out of his body. Fortunately, he was in his spiritual abode. Otherwise, there would definitely be a huge commotion. Without any hesitation, Shaolin Yu took out the five-colored morning origin flower. Then, without any refinement, he directly stuffed it into his mouth and chewed with big mouthfuls like a hungry ghost. This five-colored morning essence flower was a divine item. As the most ideal main ingredient, it could also increase the success rate of Shaolin Yu's breakthrough this time. The energy contained within the five-colored origin flower was very special. It could gather most forms of energy wherever it flowed. When Shaolin Yu scattered them all over her body, the chaos magic released by the chaos demon nascent soul was completely absorbed. Shaolin Yu's aura also began to weaken. Then, the energy of the five-colored origin flower began to circulate according to the 9 revolutions chaos formula. It flowed towards Shaolin Yu's dantian and gradually formed a new chaos demon nascent soul. As long as this new chaos demon nascent soul was formed without any hindrance and stabilized, Shaolin Yu would be halfway through this attack. Perhaps Shaolin Yu had made thorough preparations, and the materials he had prepared were all of the finest quality. Perhaps the heavens were looking out for him, but the new chaos demon nascent soul was quickly formed. There were 5 flower buds of different shapes and colors. They hovered above the chaos demon nascent soul's head and shone with a mystical light. At this moment, Xiaolingyu took a deep breath and began to familiarize herself with this new chaos demon nascent soul. At the same time, she began to chant a spell. These spell chants were also recorded in the 9 Revolutions chaos formula. It was said that through constant chanting, one would be able to comprehend the chaos magic within the spell chants, thereby allowing one's soul to make a breakthrough. If Xiaolingyu couldn't comprehend the chaos magic within the spell chants, then most of his previous efforts would have been in vain. If his soul realm didn't improve, it would be impossible for him to grasp the power of an early-stage chaos soul formation stage cultivator with a mere late-stage immortal monarch cultivation base. The new chaos demon nascent soul had just been formed and was still in a sealed state. Before it awakened, Xiaolingyu had to comprehend the chaos magic within the spell chants. Otherwise, the new chaos demon nascent soul would explode, and Xiaolingyu would be done for. Unfortunately, the chaos magic within the spell chants could only be comprehended by a chaos nascent soul that was familiar with the 5th revolution of the 9 Revolutions chaos formula. That was why Xiaolingyu didn't try to comprehend it before attempting to break through. If Xiaolingyu didn't have this understanding, then with all of his preparations, he would almost certainly be able to break through to the primal chaos soul formation stage. It was also because of this understanding that he only had a 60% success rate after putting in so much effort. What made Xiaolingyu depressed was that this spell chants only had syllables and no characters. He couldn't even understand the surface meaning, so how could he comprehend the chaos magic within it? However, there was definitely nothing wrong with this technique, so Xiaolingyu persisted in reciting it patiently. At first, it didn't have any effect at all. However, as time passed and he recited it more and more times, it was as if an all-encompassing scene of the evolution of heaven and earth appeared in front of his eyes. Xiaolingyu knew that his recitation was effective, so he continued to recite it while carefully comprehending it. Unfortunately, Xiaolingyu's many years of cultivation had been like a hot knife through butter. His progress was extremely fast, and he rarely had the experience of comprehending the chaos magic. This made it so that he couldn't see through these hazy things at all. He also didn't have the experience to speculate or imagine. The new chaos demonic nascent soul couldn't be sealed forever. Xiaolingyu naturally had less and less time, so he couldn't help but become more and more anxious. Sometimes, it wasn't a good thing to progress too quickly. Many older cultivators would teach their disciples that they couldn't rush to progress. They had to do it step by step. Although it was slow, it was stable. If they progressed too quickly, they would naturally have less time to comprehend each realm. This was very disadvantageous to their future development. It wasn't that Xiaolingyu didn't understand this principle in the past. However, he had no choice but to progress in his cultivation most of the time. He didn't regret his rapid progress, but now he had a taste of the bitter consequences. Under normal circumstances, for someone like Xiaolingyu who had only cultivated for a few years to reach his current level, there was almost no need to talk about comprehending the mysteries and principles. Therefore, it was impossible for him to comprehend the principles of heaven and earth contained in the chaotic scenes before him in a short period of time. However, he wouldn't give up just because of this. He still persisted in chanting those incantations. However, after an unknown amount of time, he finally sensed that his chaos demonic nascent soul was showing signs of awakening. However, he didn't have any clue about the chaos magic. Just as he was in despair, he didn't know if it was because he stopped chanting or because of other reasons, but the grayish-black metal piece that was originally hidden in his sea of consciousness suddenly trembled and made a strange sound. The sound was similar to the syllables of the incantation that Xiaolingyu had just chanted. However, it was able to reverberate in the depths of Xiaolingyu's soul. Groups of extremely clear scenes were presented and engraved in the depths of Xiaolingyu's soul consciousness. At this moment, Xiaolingyu could clearly feel that his soul realm was rapidly improving. It was indeed not a good thing for one's cultivation to progress too quickly. However, it depended on whether one had the strength and courage to seek opportunities while improving. As long as one's opportunities were good, one could obtain something that others couldn't obtain. This could also make up for the lack of comprehension of the chaos magic. The reason why this grayish-black iron piece had sunk into Shaolin Yu's sea of consciousness and not someone else's, wasn't it his lucky chance? Wasn't it one of his abilities? With the help of the grayish-black metal piece, although Shaolin Yu was still a little confused about the chaos magic, his soul realm had improved. This was enough. Perhaps it was because he didn't rely on his own comprehension this time. Shaolin Yu's soul realm stopped improving after reaching the mid-stage of the Immortal Emperor realm. This realm was enough for him to control the new chaos demonic nascent soul. At this point, Shaolin Yu was already in the early stage of the chaotic divine transformation stage. Shaolin Yu relaxed. After secretly thanking himself for being lucky, he began to stabilize his state and at the same time, sort out everything that had happened before. After coming out of seclusion, through Anya's calculations, he learned that this seclusion only took a few hundred years. After sending a message to Zhongji, Shaolin Yu learned that the current situation of the descendants of Earth wasn't much different from a few hundred years ago. Shaolin Yu was slightly relieved. However, Qin Xian told Shaolin Yu that the Nanhua immortal sect's situation wasn't as good as before. After these years of adjustment, the Nanhua immortal sect had gradually recovered from the heavy losses in the godly Mausoleum continent. The Qing guards began to pressure Qing Pingzi again. Anyway, it was still the same as the godly Mausoleum continent. Qing Pingzi's cultivators would create some small conflicts and then expand the situation. Then, they would take the opportunity to suppress Qing Pingzi's lineage. While lowering Qing Pingzi's prestige, the Qing Guard's reputation and strength would increase. However, although the Qing Guard's plan was ingenious, they didn't succeed in the godly Mausoleum continent last time. This time, nothing unexpected happened. But no matter what, Qing Pingzi definitely wouldn't give up his position. In the end, everything still had to resort to force. In other words, the Qing Guards wanted to find an excuse to make a move on Qing Pingzi's lineage. However, they wouldn't cause too much of a commotion. Originally, this had nothing to do with Qin Xian because she had already stated that she wouldn't fight for the position of sect master. However, Qin Xian suddenly stood out and said that the position of sect master was the most important position in the Nanhua immortal sect. Only the strongest person could sit on it. Therefore, she proposed to have a competition between all the emperors who wanted the position of sect master. The strongest person would be the new sect master of the Nanhua immortal sect. Qing Guards and Qing Pingzi naturally didn't agree with this proposal. However, before they could say anything, Qin Xian threatened first. Whoever stands out to reject this proposal first, I will stand against him. Qin Xian didn't have any emperors under her, but she herself was a very powerful force. If she remained neutral, Qing Pingzi and Qing Guards would be evenly matched. However, if she stood on either side, it would tilt the power of the two sides. Therefore, Qing Pingzi and Qing Guards didn't dare to reject her proposal. However, they didn't agree either. This matter was put aside. Chapter 423. Why? Do you think I can't be the sect master? Qin Xian asked with a smile. That's not it. Shaolin Yu shook his head. Actually, I'm not doing this for the sect master position. I just don't want the Nanhua immortal sect to suffer any more losses. Although everyone would try their best to restrain themselves and not expand the scale of the competition and implicate too many people, there would still be monarch-level experts who would lose their lives every time. What's the point of letting your loved ones suffer and your enemies rejoice? Wouldn't it be better for everyone to compete to determine the sect master? Qin Xian explained. It's such an important competition. If they really get into a fight, they might lose their lives. Shaolin Yu said disapprovingly. If they really agreed to the competition, the only ones who would sign up would probably be senior brother Qing Wei and senior brother Qing Ping. Since they want to compete, why drag others into it? The two of them can just have a good fight and decide who's better. Qin Xian said with a smile. Shaolin Yu thought about it and agreed. Other than himself and Qin Xian, the monarch-level cultivators in the Nanhua Immortal sect were either from Qing Wei or Qing Pingxi's faction. These two factions were led by the two of them respectively. If there was a competition, it would definitely be between the two of them. If this can be formed into a system, over time, our Nanhua Immortal sect's factions will gradually disappear and the Nanhua Immortal sect will be united. This is also beneficial to the sect's long-term development. Qing Xian added. But the two of them have to agree first. Shaolin Yu seemed to be worried. For some reason, Qing Wei and Qing Pingxi didn't agree to Qing Xian's suggestion. They just put this matter aside and Qing Wei stopped attacking Qing Pingxi's faction. Shaolin Yu had no intention of fighting for the position of sect master, so she didn't care much about it. After staying in the pavilion for another 2 months, she suddenly received a message from Zhongxi and left the Nanhua Immortal School for the East Royal City. After meeting with Zhongxi for less than 15 minutes, Shaolin Yu left the East Imperial City and sent a message to Qing Xian. She then entered the teleportation array and left the East Imperial Continent. More than 400 years ago, a group of Earth descendants had been surrounded by celestial world experts several times their number. After receiving the news, Elder Qi had gone to reinforce and rescue them. However, Elder Qi had not returned to this day. Zhongxi felt that this matter was a little strange. After hesitating for a long time, he decided to tell Shaolin Yu and ask Shaolin Yu to go and take a look at the situation. Shaolin Yu was naturally duty-bound to do so. Therefore, before leaving, he sent a message to Qing Xian and asked Qing Xian to help take care of Anya. He also said that he would be back soon. After continuously teleporting for almost 100 years, Shaolin Yu finally stopped at a continent called the Golden Rock Continent. After exiting the teleportation array, he sent a message to Elder Qi. However, he didn't receive a reply after waiting for 2 hours. According to Zhongxi, Elder Qi said before leaving that he was going to the Golden Rock Continent to rescue the group of Earth descendants. Shaolin Yu couldn't be sure if Elder Qi and the group of Earth descendants were still in the Golden Rock Continent. However, he could only start investigating from here. Anyway, something must have happened to Elder Qi. Otherwise, Elder Qi would have sent back a message. After Shaolin Yu entered the Golden Rock City, although he used a secret method to find the Bao organization's branch, the branch was now empty. He didn't stay in the Golden Rock Continent for too long. Instead, he searched for the people of the Bao organization's branch in a few immortal continents near the Golden Rock Continent. Although he found a few people in charge of the branch, they didn't know about Elder Qi and the group of Earth descendants. Elder Qi also didn't look for them in recent years. Shaolin Yu had no choice but to return to the Golden Rock Continent. First, he used his identity as a member of the Nanhua Immortal sect to meet the City Lord of the Golden Rock City. After he still didn't get any useful information, he went to the most powerful sect in the Golden Rock Continent. This sect wasn't very powerful. There was only one early-stage martial emperor in the entire sect. However, this early-stage martial emperor was already the most powerful cultivator in the Golden Rock Continent. This sect and this early-stage martial emperor naturally didn't dare to offend the experts of the Nanhua Immortal sect. They answered almost all of Shaolin Yu's questions with a very good attitude. Here, Shaolin Yu obtained some useful information. According to this early-stage martial emperor, there were indeed signs of a large number of experts fighting in the southwest direction of the Golden Rock Continent a few hundred years ago. He also went to check it out at that time. However, it was too late. Other than seeing the traces left behind by the experts, he didn't find anything else. Less than 100 years after that battle, which left only a few traces, this early-stage Spirit Emperor cultivator had felt a few very powerful auras surging from the southwest of the Golden Rock Continent. That place was not close to their sect. Even so, he could still feel those few powerful auras. He guessed that there were at least late-stage Spirit Emperor experts releasing their auras, so he did not dare to go over to check. After receiving this information, Shaolin Yu left the sect and flew to the southwest direction of the Golden Rock Continent. It didn't take long for him to find the battlefield that was still faintly visible even after hundreds of years of erosion. Then, he carefully searched it. A few hundred years had passed. The auras left behind by the experts had long been blown away by the wind. The traces left behind by the experts were also blurred. Xiaoling Yu didn't have the heaven-defying ability to see the past. It was too difficult for him to find anything here. Back then, the group of Earth descendants must have encountered a strong enemy here and retreated after a big battle. Nearly 100 years later, Elder Qi arrived here. He should have also encountered a strong enemy. However, there was no way to analyze the specific situation of the battle. If Elder Qi won, he would have returned. However, he couldn't conclude that Elder Qi lost just because of this. There are no traces of the battle between the martial emperors here. They most likely fought in the starry sky. After figuring this out, Xiaoling Yu flew towards the vast starry sky. When he reached the clouds, he entered the divine palace. The starry sky was vast. Only with the flying speed of the divine palace could Xiaoling Yu carry out a large-scale search. After searching in the starry sky of the Golden Rock continent for nearly 10 years, Xiaoling Yu saw a planet not far away. It was constantly flashing with strange flowing lights. He steered the divine palace and flew over. After approaching the planet, he exited the divine palace. Then, under the effect of the invisible divine robe, he disappeared without a trace. For hours later, he landed on the planet's surface. He was less than 10,000 kilometers away from the place where the flowing lights were flashing. Quietly moving there, Xiaoling Yu saw more than 100 experts from the immortal world bombarding a circle of light that didn't cover a very large area. There were more than 30 cultivators inside the circle of light. Although the circle of light looked weak, its defensive power was actually very strong. Despite being bombarded by more than 100 experts, it only trembled continuously without showing any signs of breaking. Not wanting to expose his existence too early, Xiaoling Yu didn't use his consciousness to scan the area. However, by sensing the attacking aura of the cultivators, he could determine that more than 30 of them were in the Immortal Emperor stage. The rest of them were in the Immortal Monarch stage. More than 100 people were enough to destroy a large sect in the immortal world that was slightly weaker than the Nanhua Immortal School. As for the level of the cultivators in the Circle of Light, Xiaoling Yu couldn't sense it. However, he found many of them very familiar. The cultivators in the Circle of Light were the descendants of the Earth that Elder Qi wanted to rescue. Some of them had participated in the battle against the Heaven Incense School, so Xiaoling Yu recognized them. The people who were being rescued were still in danger, so where was Elder Qi, who came to help? The Circle of Light didn't show any signs of breaking, so Xiaoling Yu continued to observe in secret. However, he soon discovered that although the defensive Circle of Light was sturdy, it definitely wouldn't remain unbroken for hundreds of years if the experts outside were to really attack it with all their might. Moreover, the experts outside didn't attack very fiercely. They all looked like they had plenty of energy left. This kind of surprise attack and encirclement usually focuses on ending the battle quickly so as to avoid being delayed and not give the other party a chance to be rescued. But why are they doing this? Could it be that they're besieging the enemy to attack the reinforcements? Xiaoling Yu was puzzled. No matter what the other party was thinking, Xiaoling Yu couldn't continue to observe. He believed that in the face of absolute strength, any schemes and tricks were just a joke. After searching around invisibly, Xiaoling Yu made sure that there were no immortal monarch experts hiding in the surroundings. Only then did he quietly approach the other party's group. A cold light flashed out without any warning, and the head of an immortal emperor flew into the air before exploding. The sudden change shocked the group of over 100 experts from the immortal world. At the same time, they were stunned. Before they could regain their senses, the cold light flashed again. Another immortal emperor was cut in half on the spot, and his immortal nascent soul couldn't escape in time. Everyone, retreat. There's someone hiding here. After hearing the warning, the group of over 100 people quickly retreated to the left and instantly released their auras at the same time, forming a defensive circle of light. Just as these people were all staring outside in fear, the cold light flashed again in the defensive circle they formed together. In less than 2 breaths of time, nearly 10 people had died on the spot. They shouted again and then dodged to the other side. Someone shouted, "Everyone, release your auras with all your might and shake the space." With so many experts releasing their auras at the same time, the space naturally fluctuated. Shaolin Yu's figure was also revealed. He was dressed in black and had a transparent machete that was as thin as a cicada's wing. Although he had killed countless people, there wasn't a trace of blood on it. Shaolin Yu stood in the fluctuating space with a cold expression, like a killing god. Among the descendants of Earth, some of them recognized Shaolin Yu, so they withdrew their defensive circle of light and surrounded Shaolin Yu. Chapter 424. Got it. You guys go back first. I'll take care of things here, Shaolin Yu said without changing her expression. They have a lot of people. Why don't we kill all of them before leaving? An Earth Immortal Emperor said cautiously. If having a lot of people was useful, would they still be so afraid? Shaolin Yu first smiled confidently and then said, "You guys should quickly evacuate. They must have deliberately trapped you here to lure us Earth's powerhouses to support you. Maybe in a while, even more powerhouses will appear. If you don't leave now, you will be in danger of being besieged again if I am restrained later." Most of the descendants from Earth were righteous and united. If not, they would have been wiped out long ago. Although they were worried about leaving Shaolin Yu here alone, they had seen how powerful Shaolin Yu was last time. Therefore, they did not continue to dawdle and immediately landed on the Golden Rock continent together. There were more than 100 people on the other side. They were already intimidated by Shaolin Yu and did not dare to chase after her at all. They all stared at Shaolin Yu nervously. After this group of descendants from Earth left, Shaolin Yu summoned more than 2,000 armored puppets with a thought and surrounded the 100 people on the other side. As soon as the encirclement was formed, the attack had already begun. Shaolin Yu did not make a move. Instead, she let the armored puppets continuously attack with divine light. Under such circumstances, if there were no accidents, Shaolin Yu would not need to use any other techniques or Dharma treasures to kill the 100 people on the other side in a very short period of time. However, Shaolin Yu did not do that. Instead, she made the armored puppets slow down their attacks from time to time. She only suppressed the opponents to the point that they could not raise their heads but did not break through their defenses. Even if they intended to keep these people alive, the attacks of the armored puppets were too ferocious for them. Moreover, there were too many armored puppets. As they struggled to hold on, some of the weaker immortal monarchs would be shaken to death. The other party could encircle the enemy and attack the reinforcements. Shaolin Yu could do the same. Elder Qi was being attacked by Huyunzi and Fairy Blue Jade, so he could only fight while running. There was no chance of him winning. Shaolin Yu did not know where they had gone, and he had no way of finding them. As such, he had surrounded this group of enemies. He guessed that either Huyunzi or Fairy Blue Jade would come to help. Of course, it was also possible that both of them would come at the same time. Even if Shaolin Yu couldn't defeat the two celestial venerables, it wouldn't be a problem for her to retreat. Only by seeing Fairy Lanyao or Huyunzi would Shaolin Yu be able to understand Elder Qi's current situation. These 100 or so people had also tried to break out of the encirclement, but Shaolin Yu had deliberately let one of them go. As for the others, it was impossible for them to break out of the encirclement of so many armored puppets. Even if they could, they would not be able to get past Shaolin Yu. Without making Shaolin Yu wait for too long, Huyunzi, who was wearing a Taoist robe and holding a horsetail whisk, rushed over. His face was cold and gloomy, and he no longer had the slightest trace of an immortal. He had expended a great deal of effort to create these armored puppets, but in the end, it had all gone to someone else. One could imagine his current state of mind. Seeing Fairy Blue Jade arrive, Shaolin Yu felt a bit relieved at first, but then he became a bit worried. Today, without that old bastard Qi, let's see what else you can do. As Huyunzi spoke, he swung the horsetail whisk in his hand. Countless silver threads shot out in a straight line. Shaolin Yu's aura suddenly surged, and a ring of purplish-black flames enveloped his body. At the same time, the silver moon-broken blade appeared in his hand. The silver threads were also divine tools, so they did not fear the purplish-black chaotic true fire for a short period of time. As a result, they directly pierced through and firmly trapped Shaolin Yu. However, in the next moment, the silver moon-broken blade severed the silver threads, and Shaolin Yu regained her freedom. She then used her mind to command the armored puppets to continue attacking with all their might. More than 2,000 rays of divine light shot out at the same time. However, they were not aimed at Huyunzi. Instead, they were aimed at the less than 50 celestial realm cultivators that they had surrounded. With just a single wave of divine light, the defensive barrier that these exhausted cultivators had set up exploded. All of the immortal monarchs were killed on the spot, and even the immortal emperors were coughing up blood from their wounds. Huyunzi's expression became even more unsightly, but there was a hint of caution between his brows. This was because the moment the silver threads had bound the other party, they had already tightened with all their might. If it had been an ordinary cultivator, the other party's body would have already been sliced into countless pieces by the divine tool-grade threads. However, not only had the silver threads not strangled the other party to death, they had not even been able to break through the other party's defenses. This made Huyunzi realize that the other party's physical quality had reached a level that he did not dare to believe. Just based on this point alone, he had no choice but to treat them with caution. You and Fairy Blue Jade are both celestial monarchs, peak existences in the three realms. How can you have the nerve to fight two of us? Shaolin Yu asked disdainfully after dispelling the attack of the silver threads. The ancestors left a message that the remnants of Earth cannot be left alive. Why would I need to talk about one or two of you when dealing with you? Huyunzi replied indifferently. Why are you so stubborn about the grudges of ancient times? Can you be sure that in the God realm, your ancestors and the ancient powerhouses of Earth are not drinking and chatting harmoniously? Although Shaolin Yu seemed to be arguing with the other party, the attacks of the 2,000 armored puppets were still ferocious. Originally, we had no intention of completely wiping out the remnants of Earth, but this time, you were too presumptuous. You actually dared to attack the Heaven's Incense School. You're courting death, so you can't blame anyone else, Huyunzi said with a cold smile. Don't be so despicable. Right now, you're strong, while the descendants of Earth are weak because of their small numbers. However, it's still hard to say who will have the last laugh. The descendants of Earth are not lambs that you can slaughter at will. You can be high and mighty and openly abuse your power in the immortal realm. Why should we, the descendants of Earth, have to give in to your whims and hide every day? Shaolin Yu said angrily. The immortal realm is so vast and boundless. There are so many immortals that it's impossible to count them all. The remnants of Earth only have a few 100,000 people in the immortal realm. You're really like a grain in the ocean. You're delusional enough to think that you can contend against the world like you did in ancient times? How foolish and arrogant. Huyunzi said disdainfully. The reason Huyunzi was wasting words with Shaolin Yu was because his cultivation level was higher. He wanted to get a closer look at Shaolin Yu's true strength. Just now, Shaolin Yu had easily neutralized his attack, so he didn't dare act rashly. Shaolin Yu had only said so much to get information out of Huyunzi. He didn't really want to argue with Huyunzi about some major principles. I think that only you so-called large sects have some opinions about the descendants of Earth. There aren't many ordinary immortals in the immortal realm who are as tyrannical as you. Shaolin Yu first responded, then continued, moreover, at least we descendants of Earth now have an immortal sovereign like Elder Qi. If you want to kill us, you have to consider the consequences. Ha ha. Huyunzi laughed loudly, that old bastard won't be able to protect you. He can't even protect himself right now. Although he managed to escape under the combined attacks of Fairy Lan Yao and I, he probably won't be able to live for much longer. This was what Shaolin Yu wanted to hear, but it wasn't good news. Could it be that immortal sovereigns also like to brag? No matter what, Elder Qi is still an immortal sovereign. Even if he was attacked by two immortal sovereigns, even if he couldn't win, it shouldn't be a problem for him to escape. How could he have ended up in such a miserable state? Shaoling Yu replied with a look of disbelief. Whether you believe it or not, that's your business. In any case, that's the truth, Hu Yunzi said calmly. Shaoling Yu felt that Hu Yunzi shouldn't be lying or boasting. If Elder Qi was in good condition now, he would have returned to the East Imperial continent long ago. Perhaps he really was seriously injured and was recuperating in some hidden place. However, Shaoling Yu could already confirm one thing: Elder Qi was at least still alive. As long as he was still alive, even if he was seriously injured, there was a way to heal him. Shaoling Yu already knew what she wanted to know, and Hu Yunzi's probing of Shaoling Yu had also reached its limit. The two didn't say much. After looking at each other, they attacked each other at the same time. Hu Yunzi swept his horsetail whisk over while forming seals with his hands. Shaoling Yu was bathed in the primal chaos true fire. He withstood the attacks of the silver threads and wanted to get closer to Hu Yunzi. At the same time, the primal chaos devil seal whizzed over. Hu Yunzi's speed was extremely fast. If he wanted to dodge, Shaoling Yu couldn't catch up at all. Naturally, he couldn't engage in close combat with Hu Yunzi. He couldn't use the advantage of his high-quality body and the incomparably sharp silver moon-broken saber. Hu Yunzi dodged and attacked at the same time. Because he was fast and had a high cultivation level, he had the initiative. However, even if his attacks could lock onto Shaoling Yu and penetrate the primal chaos true fire and hit Shaoling Yu's body, they couldn't pose an effective threat. As such, the two of them couldn't do anything to each other. They were in a stalemate, and it looked like they were evenly matched. However, the opposing immortal emperors were in imminent danger under the encirclement of more than 2,000 armored puppets. There were constantly people getting injured, and there were also people dying from time to time. Most of these immortal emperors were experts from Hu Yunzi's heavenly Dao sect. There were also some who were summoned by Hu Yunzi. However, they were probably going to lose their lives here. Fairy Lan Yao once said that in the eyes of a celestial supremacy, everyone below the celestial supremacy was an ant. Actually, Hu Yunzi thought the same. Even though the immortal emperors died one after another, Hu Yunzi had no intention of helping. Shaoling Yu originally wanted to use the faceless giant demon art to increase his strength and then fight Hu Yunzi. However, after thinking about it, he gave up. Even if he used the faceless giant demon art, his speed might not be able to catch up to Hu Yunzi. As long as he couldn't catch up to Hu Yunzi, he still wouldn't be able to do anything to this celestial supremacy. Most importantly, using the faceless giant demon art consumed a lot of energy. If he couldn't win, he would be in danger. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.